Wah. Hello. Why was there already captions before I even started talking? It already had like captions going. I don't know why. And it doesn't even matter how hard you try. Keep that in mind. But hello everyone. How you guys doing? I didn't warm up my voice. I probably should have. Me 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 me. Me 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 me. How you guys doing? Happy Friday. It's the end of the week, the end of the work week. It's the end of the work week. Yippee! Happy day! Monday, Tuesday, happy days. But hello everyone, hello. I'm actually pretty excited. I've been researching all of like yesterday, today, actually a little bit of Wednesday too. Like Wednesday, yesterday, a little bit of today. There's still some gaps in the research, but we're gonna do that live. We're gonna run it live, gosh darn it. But hello, how you guys doing? Let's see who we got here. Who we got here? We got your sticker. Get your stickers, everyone, while they're nice and sticky. Wait a minute. Harpsichord Enjoyer, hello, you got your sticker. Shiopi, you got your sticker. Folk, you got your sticker. And Seishun, hello everybody. How you guys doing? How's the week been? I haven't seen you guys since Monday. Technically, I did also stream yesterday, but that was on the Discord. That was exclusively on the Discord. We did a little bit of... Okay, we did actually a lot last night. So we did... Fugubi, hello. Hello. We read a cute little storybook. Well, first we did our dailies, and then we read a cute storybook featuring the art of one of my favorite artists, Robert Gonsalves, who specializes in this whimsical, magical realism style. And then we opened Digimon cards. I just so happened to have gotten a box yesterday, and it came like right before stream time, so I was like, I might as well open this on stream. And we got some good gets, and I actually just finished organizing it. So I entered it into digicard.app or whatever the hecky, right? So I just need to see what I can build. You know what, now that I say that, let me just look up one quick thing and then we'll get started. That's always how it starts, right? It's like, let me just look up one quick thing. They weren't rigged. Yeah, okay, I did really good on Time Guesser for like the first 4 rounds, or like 3 rounds, I want to say. And it was, I don't know, it was kind of cracked, and I was telling the Babinkovs, like, you guys believe me, right? I know it's not going to be recorded, but you believe me that, like, this isn't rigged or anything. But apparently, people think that I rigged Time Guesser. I didn't. I just lucked out. We didn't luck out on, like, the second to last one, where I was like, is it Australia or is it the US? And it was in fact Australia, but it's okay. It's fine. It's cool. Okay, I'm just gonna check something really quick regarding my Digimon cards. Do I have Titamon? Do I have it? It's taking so long to load, please! Please! I just want to know if I can build Titans. Please? Okay, it's taking a minute. This is... Let's just get on with it. Let's just freaking get on with it. I mean, hello class, hello. It's me, Babinka Bear, your local Sun Bear art history teacher and educational streamer. And today we are actually... Oh, I forgot to share the most important part. Decade style studies. There we go. Let me hide this. Let me hide this. Peg School, hello. Hello. Today in class, our main thing that we're going to be doing... Hold on, let me just close something real quick. What we're going to be doing today is our style study. This is a new-ish running series. I've been doing style studies for a while, but our latest kind of series in this is to look at art and design from each and every... Not each and every, but like the last 100 years... by the decade. So the last time we did this was around like 2 weeks ago. We started with the 1920s. Oh yeah, let's put on some music. I was listening to Joji. Got the industrial sound in new album. Or maybe it's just this first song, but we'll see. But yeah, so I've been doing this by the decade. We started with the 1920s last time, about 2 weeks ago. So now we talked a little bit about like the different styles, Art Deco, Dada, Surrealism. These are all reactions to the decade before, and the Great War. We did some research on the fly during that stream, and then we're going to be doing the same thing, but this time with the 1930s. This was the era, at least with the US, the Great Depression. The Great Depression and the following New Deal kind of like influence a whole bunch of things within this decade. And the Great Depression also affected a lot of countries outside of the US as well. So as you can see, I already did a bit of research. I already got some cool pictures and stuff, but it's not enough, I tell you. It's not enough. I had a lot of fun researching this as well. And then we did a little bit of research on the Discord as well. I'm like considering making that a thing of like when I do these style studies, I'm thinking like the night before or 2 nights before, I might just hop on the Discord voice chat and just do some research. And if you guys want to tune in, you can. I even fixed the settings so that people can unmute if they want to, but you don't have to if you just want to like vibe in the same room. We could even throw up the Go room, the Golf room, the Van Gogh room, what have you. But yeah, we're going to be talking about the 1930s today. So we're actually not going to do our dailies in the beginning of the stream. We're going to do them at the end of the stream because maybe we'll do Food Guesser. We could do Food Guesser first, but we're going to leave Time Guesser for the end. Hello, Matthew. Hello. We could do Food Guesser, but we're gonna do Time Guesser at the end because we're hoping the goal is that we get so good at the 1930s that if we get a time guesser that is set in the 1930s, we'll be able to identify it, right? We got kind of okay at identifying like the 1900s to like the 1920s, but we want to get better. We want to just keep getting better at time guesser. The ultimate goal is for us to be like time guesser masters, right? And then from there, this is my master plan, by the way. You guys want to hear my master plan? We make content out of it. I mean, we're already making content out of just the research phase of it, right? But eventually I want to get to the point where like I can make YouTube videos about like, here's how you get good at time guesser. And it's like, if you see a car that looks like this XYZ, then it's probably the 1920s, or, you know, that's kind of like one of the goals that I have is like, we're getting good at time guesser right now. We're getting good at identifying different cars, fashion, design, buildings, architecture, all that stuff by the decade so that we could just like get really good at this at time guesser. That would be cool, right? That's what I'm thinking too. So that's kind of like a good long-term goal that I want to set off for. One thing before we get into Food Guesser though is that the one thing is that I decided to start at the 1920s because we're currently in the 20s. Yeah, like a cheat sheet, exactly. Mika getting ready to time travel, that's why she's becoming a pro in time guesser. You just see me in like, you know, you start seeing me in like old photos. It's like, wait a minute, zoom in. I should start like photoshopping myself into some of these photos, but can you imagine? It's like, wait a second, zoom in, enhance, what's that? A bear. It's just like me with like this little old-timey hat. Or I would, I would try to like, be in the fashion of the time. It's like, have you guys ever seen there's a Twitter account that just photoshops Paddington Bear into everything? That should be my shtick, that I just like Photoshop myself in the background, but it's like very obvious. It's like, oh my god, is that a bear? Is that a bear? Like, she's just standing on 2 legs and she's into magic cards? No! Lamau, no? Yeah, I think, they also photoshopped Paddington into magic cards as well. Let me see if I can find the account for you guys. Photoshop Paddington Twitter. It's J the Chew. Their whole thing is just like photoshopping Paddington. Here. See, I photoshopped Paddington into a movie, TV show, or pop culture until I forget. See? He's everywhere. Wait, where is he here? Oh, there he is. It's pretty good too, like the way that they do it. It's not too bad. Poor guy. The Bigfoot pose, pixelated purple bear in the back. Yeah, right? Everything normal till a bear watches menacingly in the background. Oh my god. Is that Star Trek? Oh no! Say goodbye to Exodia! I gotta get this good. Or maybe I like commission this guy to be like, hey, can you just Photoshop me in the background of like random historical photos? Not too contemporary. I don't want to be in the background of some certain like historical things, especially like in the 1940s, but like But like everything else is free game. You could Photoshop me in the background if you want. Oh no! He's so menacing. In the style too. Exactly. So while that is not necessarily the goal, it would be funny, right? It would be funny. But what I was saying before is I decided to start at the 1920s because that's like 100 years in the past, right? Nice even number, hundo years. However, I'm realizing that like because Time Guesser starts at the 1900s, I think we might need to loop around eventually. We might need to go back to the 1900s. But I like thought long and hard about it. I was like, should I just like, you know, after we do the stream on the 1930s, should we rewind back to the 1900s? Or should I keep going until we get to the 2020s and then we'll loop around to the 1900s? And I've kind of decided we might just do the latter, where like we're just going to keep going all the way. 1940s is going to be the next, maybe like 2 weeks from now or next week. And 1950s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s, 2020s, and then we're going to loop back around to the 1900s. You guess the future styles? That'd be funny. It's like, all right, 2030s, what are we reacting against? I actually have kind of been thinking about that lately. Yeah, like the 2030s and 40s. I feel like the 2020s has been a reaction against the I hate using this terminology because like I think you guys know my politics. I am of the left-leaning variety, and I guess one might say woke before that term was co-opted into like an insult, right? But a lot of people say that the 2020s are becoming this like reaction against 2010s like ultra wokeness, right? So I feel like the 2030s are going to be a reaction against that. Are going to be a reaction like not a return, like not an exact return, but like a reaction against like the I guess how do I say this? Heartlessness like against this kind of like very like fascist yeah, authoritarian. There you go. That's a good word. That's a good, like, no, that's not a good word, but that's a good term for what I'm thinking. Like, it's a reaction against the authoritarianism, you know? Which, like, in many ways, you see that in, like, almost every decade. It's a reaction against, like, what came before it. So, we're already kind of seeing a reaction against, like, AI in terms of, like, young people wanting to go, quote unquote, back to analog, right? I've been seeing that as a trend recently, and I've been trying to hop onto that trend as well, getting back into journaling and all that stuff. So I feel like, well, we'll see how the latter 2020s pan out, because we're in 2026. This is kind of the crystallization of the 2020s, because I do feel like a decade doesn't really crystallize until you get to the halfway point, if that makes sense. So, for example, if you think of, I don't know, the 70s as like everyone with their bell-bottom pants and like folks with like the big hair, black folks with the afros and the funky style, you know, women with their like super like wavy hair and all of that. If you go back to like 1970, it still feels a little bit like the 60s, right? Because like it's just a year off. But it is until 5 years later that, you know, what we think of as like 70s style really blossoms and crystallizes. Everything up till then is just kind of like developing to that point, and then everything after the halfway point is developing into the decade that follows. Does that make sense? Like, does that make sense? So I feel like right now we're in the crystallization of the 2020s. You know, this is kind of like not necessarily peak, because that would imply that everything is like swell right now, but it kind of sort of is like the peak 2020s vibe. And then now we're going to start transitioning into whatever the heck the 2030s is going to be. Not like consciously. Does that make sense? Like, it's not consciously, but it's just like that's just how time be. Anyway, I don't know if I'm making sense, but we're going to study the 1930s, and then we're going to keep going until the 2020s, and then we're going to circle back around to the 1900s as kind of like a prequel. And then maybe by the end of this study, we'll be so good at time guesser, we're going to be able to linear time. I know. What was the joke in Futurama where it's like, I thought time would be cyclical, and Fry's just like, nah, straight linear. And then it did turn out to be cyclical. It's like when when the world finally goes into its big crunch, which hopefully it will. The alternative is actually more frightening. But when the universe goes into its big crunch, it's just gonna big bang all over again, you know? Yeah, okay, at least from the way I understand it, there's one of two possibilities, or maybe it's infinite possibilities, but like the two biggest theories of what's going to happen at the end of the universe is either the universe starts to get to a point where it's reached, you know, as far out as it can, and then everything's going to condense back. Everything's going to come, like, everything is expanding now. All these like different galaxies and systems are all expanding away from each other. But eventually it's going to get to a point where it does the opposite. It reaches its peak and then it like descends back upon itself. And in that way, that's actually going to be like interesting to think about, right? Like, because space has been expanding forward, but then when space starts expanding, or not, sorry, when it starts to condense backward, does that mean time will do something similar? Are we going to go backwards in time, you know? But then eventually everything's going to come back together to a singular point once again, and that's the big crunch. Everything just collapses in on itself. And it feels like what might happen after that is another big bang. Life begins anew. Or not life, but like the universe begins anew. Maybe even life does as well. So that's one possibility. The other possibility is that the universe never stops stretching. It never stops expanding in one direction, or in all directions rather. It just keeps on going, but the thing is, like, everything is eventually going to run out of fuel. Every single star, every single like planet, every single like thing is eventually going to run out of fuel. And eventually, because the universe is eternally expanding and everything's getting further and further and further away from everything else, what's going to happen is like the universe, the whole universe is just going to die out, like slowly. Eventually, like the very last star will become like a white dwarf. And even billions and trillions of years after that, the last white dwarfs will also run out of fuel. So little by little, all the light in the universe is just going to go out. So I feel like that's the scarier option, right? I know I didn't mean to freak you guys out. Happy weekend, by the way, everyone, and welcome to class. Let's learn about existential dread. But yeah, I feel like that's the scarier option, isn't it? I would much rather time be cyclical, sick, sick nasty. I would much rather that the universe converges on itself again and everything just happens all over again. Cyclical. But yeah, so we're just here for the 1930s though. We're not here for for trillions of years from now. And by the time the universe dies out, I do feel like humans and all of us silly earthlings might be long gone by then. We might have descendants. Who knows what kind of space bears are gonna evolve by that point. Maybe we'll evolve to be what is it called? The water bears, you know? The water bears where we're just like traveling through space, but like microscopic. That'd be sick. Glickle, right? So, but before we get to that point, let's go through the 1930s. Oh, wait. Let's do food guesser first. Oh, my sneakrits. Food guesser. Let's do food guesser. We'll talk about the 1930s. We'll take a couple of breaks along the way. Ooh. Oh, give me a second. It's okay, we accidentally just dropped something, but it's fine. It's fine. Yeah, food guesser. And then we'll do time guesser at the very end. Let's do it. Okay, food guesser. We have our map too. Ooh, looks good. Wheat flour, water, water, salt, clarified butter, fenugreek seeds, and oil. We've seen this word before, fenugreek, which makes me think it's like from Greece, but I think we were wrong that time, right? This dish is unleavened flatbread, typically made from wheat flour, water, and salt. Cooked on a hot skillet until lightly browned on both sides, often enjoyed for breakfast, this bread is sometimes served with clarified spiced butter or yogurt. For a traditional twist, pieces may be torn and mixed with bearberry spice? Or is it bear beer? Or incorporated in a spicy stew, adding robustness and flavor. There's something about what this is called, berberis spice, that reminds me of like the Berbers, right? Which is like a North African group. HGTQW5, hello. Hello, hello. We're playing some food guesser. And then we're going to talk about the 1930s. The time of the, not Charleston, the time where everyone is hungry, very, very hungry. This makes me think of like North Africa. Let's try out North Africa first, and then we'll go from there. Let's do Algeria. Cool. And we're actually going to the east. Let's get the map out. So we said Algeria. It's cool. So could be Egypt, could be Saudi Arabia, maybe Saudi Arabia, or even Oman, UAE, right? If it's cool, I feel like if it was Egypt, it might be hot or warm. It's not ice cold, so part of me wants to say like here, West Asia, right? So let's try Saudi Arabia and see if we get a little bit closer. Saudi Arabia. We're warm, Kicha. But I think we overshot it. We have to go back to the southwest. But we are warm. Maybe Sudan? I don't think they... What I figured out with Food Guesser is that if they have a water border, it won't say borders. It has to be a land border for it to say borders. So for example, like Saudi Arabia, even though technically it does border Sudan, it's a water, like it's a body of water that separates them. So it won't say borders on Time Guesser. It might say hot, but it won't say borders. Where I get tripped up is places like let's say Malaysia, right? Because I think we got like Thailand at one point. No, I think we got Malaysia at one point. And it said something like borders. And I was like, but it's an island nation. What is it border? And then I realized like, oh no, wait. It does have a land border with Thailand, right? So, it could be Sudan. It could be, it's to the southwest. Let's try Sudan. Let's try Sudan and see what happens. Sudan. It borders to the east. Is that Eritrea or Ethiopia? It could be Ethiopia or Eritrea. Let's do Ethiopia. It is. Oh, it could have been either of them. It could have been Eritrea or Ethiopia. Oh, I love Ethiopian food, even though I've only had it once 10 years ago. I want to try it. It's like, I want to try it again. I want to try it again. Okay, cool. Cool. We got some kicha bread from Ethiopia. What is this? Rice cakes, sausage, soy sauce, sugar. Gochujang, this is Korea. Come on. Come on. That's such a dead giveaway. That's like when we get like a Japanese food and it lists like Japanese ingredients, right? This looks good though. Garlic, sesame oil, sesame seeds, green onion, honey. Actually, even the rice cakes kind of were like a tip off, right? This made me think of like tteokbokki? Tteokbokki? I don't know how to pronounce it, but you guys know what I mean? It's like the stretchy rice cake. Dish is a popular street food featuring skewered rice cakes and sausages. Sausages. Let's try Korea. Korea. Nice. First try. So chok. I actually don't know if the double T is pronounced cho or cho. So chok. Nice. Ice cream. Carabao milk. Well, that's Philippines. That has to be Philippines. Is this dirty ice? It's dirty ice cream, isn't it? That's such a big tip-off. Carabao, especially with the way that it's spelled. That's Filipino, isn't it? Coconut milk, condensed milk, sugar, cornstarch, flavoring extracts, fruit, cheese, ube. Ube, come on! Come on. This has to be Filipino. Yup, sorbetes, dirty ice cream. I wanted to get some when I went to the Philippines about a couple years. It's already been a couple years. What the heck? Or it was November of 2024. So yeah, it has been a couple. Oh man! But I wanted to have some of the dirty ice cream when I went there. My parents were like, "No, don't do it unless you want like a tummy ache. You're not gonna eat that." That looks very tasty. I do like spicy rice cake. Hello, Battle Crackers. Hello. Welcome. And that sounds good, right? I actually haven't had spicy food in a minute because of my gallbladder surgery. But I'm happy to say that I've been eating pretty oily, well, not pretty oily foods, but like I've been eating foods with a little bit more oil. and I haven't had any tummy aches. I think I'm pretty much like almost completely recovered. I had some chimichurri today. It's pretty good. And I didn't have any tummy aches. So I want to see if I can stomach spicy food. I think that's the next big leap, right? And then maybe after, once I am able to like digest that, we'll move on to like the really oily foods in moderation, right? I'm not gonna eat a whole, I don't know, deep fried block of tofu, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. I just found out that Charlie is pronounced Charlie. I know that if it was an S instead of the X, that would be very Filipino, right? Because TSA is pronounced cha in like Tagalog and like Filipino languages. Like chinelas, right? It's spelled Tsinelas, right? I've never seen it with an X though. Like that makes me think that it's like nawat, right? But that's pretty cool. Charlie. I try not to do too much spicy food for reflux reasons. That's fair. That's very fair. Oh, Basque. I know nothing about Basque. Is that the Spanish language that like has no close like linguistic relatives? Or am I thinking of like Catalan or Catalan? Catan? Settlers of Catan? Which I've never played. But it was like a big thing when I was in college. Alright, we're a gastronomical genius. We did it. Let's see, what do we get here? The hundo. And then, let's see. Oh yeah, we will do time guesser at the very end. We'll do time guesser at the very end. Because we gotta talk. We actually got quite a bit to yap about today. Got quite a bit, but let me actually get a sip of my water and then we'll get started. By the way, we are listening to Joji's new album. I haven't listened to a good Joji album, or I haven't listened to a Joji album in a minute. I think all his albums are pretty cool, right? Settlers of Catan, aka Shipopoli. I don't know if I've ever finished a Monopoly game. No, you know what? I have, but it was like a miniature version. It was like a weird, like, not kiddie version, but it was like a version with just like, I don't know, it was like miniaturized in a way. I remember playing it in a coffee shop with some friends. But I've also never played Settlers of Catan, but I remember in college, like, I had like a friend group within like my Filipino club that like, it was kind of a weird dynamic because they all were kind of like too cool for school in a way. They all just seemed like really cool and like, they all seemed like the type that like wanted to party more than study. Right? But then they also had a streak of like nerdiness where all of them were also really into Settlers of Catan. Like, not to be too stereotypical, right? Not to be like, oh, they weren't nerds, but they like nerdy things. Like, you know, like there's nothing wrong with like liking Settlers of Catan and like, I guess board games. No matter whether you see yourself as like one of the cool kids or the nerds, you know, I feel like that is an old-fashioned way of looking at things. It's a very Homer Simpson, like, there's the jocks and the nerds, you know? But it was just like something that I didn't quite expect. Like these party people that were like, you know, really into like drinking and they didn't seem to study that much, but they still got good grades, you know? But they were also really into Settlers of Catan. Nerds! But okay, what was I talking about? The 1930s. The 1930s. So let's go ahead and get started with our analysis of art and design of the 1930s. As I said, I already got some research out of the way, but we could do more. There's more that we can always do. But yeah, nerds! Let's see. Oh, actually, before we get into that, there's one thing that I wanted to test out. I updated my SAMMI bot, which is a bot that like controls a lot of my redeems. I think most of them should be working. The one thing that I'm actually not sure if it works, because I did get like a warning message. It was like, oh, your Twitch throwing system wasn't updated alongside what's it called? SAMMI bot. So I'm giving you guys permission. Can someone throw something at me to see if the redeem works? Because I think I can manually like trigger it, but I just wanna make sure. So I'm giving you permission. There you go. It doesn't work! Nothing was thrown at me. Wait, can I still manually? It's not working! I'm getting hit by invisible objects! I'm getting hit by invisible objects. No! Wait, is it because I'm pretty sure wait. I did start up the program. Is it the Twitch throwing program itself? Oh no, I guess I didn't start it up. Wait. I thought I started it up though. Okay, wait, let me check this out. How about... Oh, there you go. It's rigged! Okay, now it's going, right? Wait, let me see if I can activate it. Because I think it might be on cooldown. Okay, there we go. Redeem. No! SAMMI is still not working. Oh no, do I have to restart SAMMI, you think? Give me a second. Maybe that's the ticket. Maybe we need to restart the bot. SAMMI. Come back to us. Okay, that still works. Let's see. Throw multiple things. Oh no, that's still on cooldown as well. Throw something. Ah, it's on cooldown for 15 more seconds. Okay. We're gonna wait 15 more seconds. I just want to make sure that you guys don't waste your points, right? If you guys want, I could refund them as well. But I just want to check something out. I just want to check this out. Okay, now we can activate it. It's still not working! It's still not working. I'm sorry, Babin Cubs. No throwing things. No throwing things. How about this? I'll manually do it. But I'm also gonna refund the points. Let's see, throw something. Let's reject that. Refund, 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 refund. Everything else was completed. So, okay. Sorry about that, folks. Sorry about that. We'll probably fix it by next stream, but it is what it is, right? It is what it is. Then let's get back into the studies, shall we? Oh, you know what? I should probably put a note as well. Some redeems are broken for today. Sorry! We'll pin that. There we go. Alright, with that aside, let's go ahead and get into the swing of things, shall we? So, our topic for today is the 1930s. I started doing this thing too where I put the US presidents of that time period just so that I know that, like, you know, we also talk about things outside of the US. A lot of this stuff is going to be very, like, Western-centric. This one, I did try to incorporate Mexican muralism into it as well, but a lot of this, by virtue of, like, the research, is going to be very Western-centric. But also, this is just more of, like, a personal, like, reminder to myself of, like, who's president during what time period, which, you know, who's committing what war crimes during what time period and all that. But it's just more of, like, something for me to keep in reference. So I did it for the 1930s, 1920s, and I even added sections for the 1900s and the 1910s when we get back to it. So, you know, US presidents during this time was T.R. Taft. 1910s was Taft and Woodrow Wilson. But mind you, this is before term limits, so that's why you only see so few presidents at this time for the U.S. Actually, here in the 1920s, there's a total of 4 because I believe one of them dies in office. So Woodrow Wilson, Warren G. Harding is, I think, the one that dies in office, and then he's followed by Calvin Coolidge and then Herbert Hoover. And then here in the 1930s, there's actually only 2 presidents throughout the entire decade, and that's because FDR is, like, the president for most of it. So Herbert Hoover is just up until the 1933. He's pretty unpopular because of the Great Depression and his, like, reaction to the Great Depression. He's immediately followed by FDR. who puts into place something called the New Deal, which was designed to kind of help out people that were suffering through the Great Depression. He goes on, because this is before the idea of term limits, he actually goes on until 1945. So he's actually president for like over 10 years. And it isn't even until he dies in office that, you know, the presidency is like given up to someone else. It's mostly because he's also very popular because of like his policies. But yeah, let's go into some current events. So the 1930s, kind of the big deal in this decade is the Great Depression. So in the U.S., there's a stock market crash that was actually the result of like just a lot of things, especially coming out of the 1920s. The 1920s was a time of like celebration after the end of World War I, or the Great War, as they called it. So there was also like this surge in like technology that allowed more things to be more accessible and cheap and affordable. So for example, like cars could be manufactured at a cheaper price and a quicker price because of the the assembly line. The Ford Model T was made on the assembly line. So that was it was pretty cheap to make and pretty cheap to buy. So cars were becoming less of a novelty and more of an alternative to horse and carriage, right? But it wasn't even just cars. It was also like home appliances, like the washing machine. So the homemakers, or most likely the wives, right? Because of like how gender roles worked back then. The wives didn't have to spend so much time cooking all day, cleaning the clothes all day. They didn't have to spend so much time on chores because now they had washing machines. Now they have stoves. Now they have like these kitchens with all the newest technology. So now there was more time for leisure. In addition, like this was a time where people were kind of celebrating like luxuries in life because they were more affordable. But just because they were more affordable doesn't mean that people always had the money for them. So this is also when people were buying things with credit, right? The fake money, if you will. They're buying on credit with the idea that you could just pay it back, with interest, of course, but you could just pay it back later, right? However, and this is the part that starts to confuse me when it comes to like how economics works and how banks work and how the Great Depression works. But eventually the banks did not have money. Well, basically, it was something where like businesses started to have less faith, or as a company started to have less faith in the stock, so they started to sell. That reduced the value of the stocks, and then we got into like the bank stuff. This is where I get very hazy, where I'm just like, I don't get it, but I do know that the stock market did crash, and because of it, it led to this death loop, and this chain reaction of people no longer having jobs. Because like the prices for things were falling. The Housewife's Best Friend and other advertising we now recognize as super sexist is exactly Battle Crackers, exactly. Yeah, exactly, Matthew. Yeah, it's just like the 2008 crash. Banks tried investing their money too much. Yeah, it was that. So, but like I said, one of my biggest weaknesses in like historical understandings is like economics. Like how stocks work and how imaginary money that isn't physical works, you know? So all of this led to the Great Depression, and then it just so happened that around the same time there was like a dust bowl and a famine in the US as well, in the rural parts, that just led to a lot of farmers not having work, not being able to make a living for themselves. So they would start to migrate to places like California. This is kind of the setting for famous novels like The Grapes of Wrath. That's what my title is based off. That's old Simpsons joke of like, here's the grapes and here's the wrath, and he like smashes the grapes with a hammer. But yeah, it's neither here nor there. But yeah, just a lot of people were suffering during this time, and it wasn't even just in the US because of global trade. The US couldn't kind of like hold up their end of the bargain with like there was a downturn in global trade, basically. They could no longer help European countries with their economies anymore because of this. They had to take care of themselves, basically. This would lead to the rise of fascism in places like Germany, Italy, and Spain, right? Because things were just that bad and people wanted to place the blame on something, you know? However, around 1933, Herbert Hoover lost the election to, or I don't know if he ran again. What is his time span? 1929 to 33. Yeah, so he had one term. So he lost to Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and once again, this is before term limits, so he went on to be so popular that he continued to be elected again and again and again until his death in office in 1945. He lost and then he ran again. Yeah, I actually don't know too much about Hoover. He's part of the list of one-term presidents, right? I actually don't know, but I do know that he was extremely unpopular because of like how he handled the Great Depression. The fact that all the shanty towns were called Hoovervilles, is pretty telling, right? He was kind of a sore loser about it too, from what I read. Yeah. If you guys know some information that I don't, or understand these parts of history better than I do, especially the Great Depression, please let me know. Please explain it to me like I'm 5 years old, because I don't understand. I just know that things were really bad. It was pretty bleak at this time. But when FDR went into office, he tried to pass some legislature collectively known as the New Deal that would try to, there's the 3 R's. What were the 3 R's? New Deal, 3 R's. It was like relief, recovery, reform. That was the goal, to be able to kind of like relieve a lot of the, you know what, let me just read here. Relief, let's see. Giving relief to like the poverty-stricken peoples, recovery at recovering the economy, and then reform to kind of like, I would assume, like make it long-term, right? Basically the 2008 recession, but with the added whammy of the coming off of World War I. Yeah, exactly. And what's interesting is that the only thing that quote unquote fixed it was World War II, right? I wish I could reach out to my history instructor coworker on this topic. My knowledge is more, this was the time when Steinbeck was writing his stuff. Exactly, right? That's why like my only frame of reference is like the Grapes of Wrath, of like, I do remember reading that in high school too, and just being like, oh, this is depressing. This is so bad. We're going California way. And I remember there was like a character named Rose of Sharon, but like they would always pronounce her name as like Rosa Sharn. It's Rosa Sharn. And I just remember like the ending too. The ending of Grapes of Wrath, and just being like, man, like this is so sad, so depressing, so Great Depression, But with the New Deal, there was this attempt to kind of like reinvigorate the economy, provide some relief and reform, all of that stuff. And part of that, and this is where we're going to get into the art as well, is that they tried to reinvigorate the economy by employing everyone, including artists, sculptors, photographers, architects, and what did I put here? Other creatives, to aid in that economic recovery. So that's why during this time you see a lot of photography kind of like showing shedding light onto like the situation. You see artists that are painting what is happening around them, and then you see sculptors as well, kind of like commemorating a lot of what was happening during this time. So that's pretty much like where we get into the art of the 1930s. Where should I start off? Because if you notice how I did the 1920s, I broke it down into 3 big groups. So Art Deco is like a big group here, Dada is a group right here, and then Surrealism is right next to it because it kind of branches off. But here the movements are very interconnected with a lot of overlapping. So for example, like Frida Kahlo actually overlaps in like 3 of these like note cards that I have here. Because here I have regionalism, we have social realism. These are 2 art movements that also overlap with each other. And then we also have Mexican mural, the Mexican mural Renaissance. And then also some stuff that was continued from the 1910s and the 1920s. Because I actually messed up on a couple of things. Some of these paintings are actually from the 1930s. When we were talking about surrealism last time, I put this image. This is the famous Dali painting. What is it? The Perseverance of Time? Persistence of Time? You know the one. This is actually made in 1931, so I actually copied it back over here as well. Let's see what you guys are saying. There was a lot of cool public work projects that came out of this era to get people back to work, like the Tennessee Valley Authority and the Civilian Conservation Corps, building stuff like national park sites. Yeah, that was all a part of like we need folks to be employed to reinvigorate the economy and just get people like back at it again, you know? So yeah, there was an attempt, but even though this was like a strong attempt, from what I was able to research, it felt like nothing quite quote unquote fix the economy as much as World War II did, which we'll get into the next time we do a style study, the 1940s. But yeah, I guess we could start from here, like what is continuing on from the 1910s and the 1920s, and then we might circle back around to regionalism and then go, oh no, I didn't mean to move that, and then go all the way back up here. So continued from the 1910s and the 1920s is surrealism. We talked about this last time. Like this was a movement that kind of sprouted out of the idea of Dada. Dada was this idea of like, well, because of like the horrific like images of war and all this like almost exposure to the horrors of war, nothing makes sense anymore. It's just too absurd. It's just too cruel. It's just so ridiculous. So why should art make any sense, right? Excuse me, I had to burp. So surrealism kind of came out of that, but with this emphasis on making art that was strange, not for strangeness' sake, but because it wanted to reflect other things such as the unconscious. The key word here is like dreamlike. There's always this dreamlike quality where within a dream, things seem to make sense, but then when you come out of the dream and try to recount the dream, it's like, what the heck? Like, why did I do that? Or why were things like that? So, we did go over Salvador Dali last time and Georgia O'Keeffe, but they of course continued to make more art into this decade. Frida Kahlo, you also started to see more of Frida Kahlo during this time, because in the 20s, that is when she actually barely had her accident in the bus. If you guys don't know the backstory of Frida Kahlo, we can actually zoom in here. She's a Mexican artist who her life changed when she was I believe taking the bus one time. I don't know if... So I watched the Selma Hayek movie about Frida Kahlo. They, of course, took some liberties with how they portrayed things in that movie, but otherwise it's, it's a life story. So I don't know if she really was on a bus, but she was in an accident. She was in an accident when she was much younger, and it led to her getting injured in multiple spots where she was bedridden for some time after it. It did also affect, I think, her legs. I think from then on, she couldn't quite walk properly without the assistance of a cane. And I don't know if she needed a cane, because in the movie, it's kind of like on and off. I think she has a limp, but I don't know if she walked with a cane. But it did also, and this plays a part in the movie as well, it also affected her ability to have a child. So it did affect her in many ways, but for a lot of, I don't know if it was like years or months, I think it was just months after the accident, she was bedridden for most of it. So during that time when she had nothing else to do, she learned how to paint, and she ended up doing a lot of these self-portraits of herself, because at the time, like, the only subject that she had that she could paint was herself. Like, she would just set up a mirror and just paint like her own face, which is why like a lot of her works like feature herself. I tried to take care to show only paintings that would have been made in the 1930s. So if you see like a familiar artist here, but it's like, oh, there's other works that I feel like are more indicative, more, what's the word I'm looking for? Just more popular, more well known. If it's not here, it's because it's during a different decade. So a good example is MC Escher. Well, he's not technically, like, his art can be surreal, but I don't know if he identified with the surrealist movement as much as like Dali and Frida Kahlo did. He experimented with kind of like this illusory art called tessellation. So if you look at this example, or actually both of these are by MC Escher. They both play with this idea of like positive and negative space. So if you look here, it looks like a bunch of like, well, when I first saw it, I thought it was a bunch of green and red lizards, right? But the space in between them makes a yellow lizard. So technically there is no negative space here, but you could also read it as like the yellow is also negative space. So same here. The birds are black here, and then the fish, they start white and then they start to transition into black. But there's this playing around with like what is the negative space and what is the positive space. So this technique is kind of referred to as tessellation. So he's starting to play with it, but if you're familiar with the name MC Escher, you might know him as more of the guy who makes the weird, like, surreal architecture. He didn't get to that point yet. At this point, he's still playing around with tessellation, and he's still playing around with, like, perspective and stuff, and it's not till later that he does those drawings of, like, the labyrinths, right? We also have a couple of Salvador Dali's over here. So once again, persistence of time. Is that what it's actually called? This is such a, like, persistence of time? Persistence of memory, right? Persistence of memory? Yeah, the persistence of memory. That's what it's called. Why would I forget that? Persistence of memory is actually made in the 1930s. I previously put it here in the 1920s, but it's a little bit later. But still comes from the same, same discipline. You also got the lobster phone. You also see some artists like Piet Mondrian, with his like abstraction, like super minimalist abstraction. Little did we know that we could go even more minimal. But yeah, all of these movements are kind of continuing on from the 1910s and the 1920s. So let's get into some stuff that was starting to develop that is unique to the 1930s. So we were talking about the Great Depression, and that did influence art of the time. However, you know how I said earlier that a lot of history, especially art history, is a reaction to, not always necessarily against, but it's a reaction to what came before. So before this, starting as early as like the late 1800s, like 1860s, 1870s, 1890s, up until like the early 20th century, I had no idea Lobster Phone was Dali. Yeah. It's a cool one. Because I'm so used to his paintings, right? Like this one. I think this one is the Something of Narcissus, right? He also did some 3D stuff, and he also made a movie. The movie's kind of freaky. It has like a really weird eye scene. The predecessor to the banana phone. Exactly. We need more lobster phones. But starting as early as like the late 19th to early 20th century, you saw the start of what people refer to as modern art. And this is where art gets a little bit abstract. It gets a little bit strange. It gets a little non-representational, as in like it doesn't really represent anything anymore. And we started to get artists that were reacting to that they didn't stuff like this. They were reacting to stuff like Piet Mondrian. They're reacting to Picasso. They're reacting to like this less emphasis on realism and more emphasis on like what art as a medium could do on its own, right? So we get into styles like regionalism and social realism. So I'll go over both right now. Both of them have to do with everyday mundane scenes from parts of America, regions of America. Regionalism, though, focuses on like small town rural America, particularly the Midwest, whereas social realism focuses more on like urban areas. So let's take a look at both of them. We'll start first with regionalism. And this painting over here, American Gothic by Grant Wood, is kind of like the hallmark of regionalism. Surely you might have seen this painting before. It's a hallmark. It's been parodied time and time again, but this is by an artist named Grant Wood. So this style kind of arose as a reaction to the Great Depression, and then it started to fall out of use by the time we got to World War II, the 40s basically. It's very conservative and traditionalist. Isn't it actually supposed to be a father and daughter rather than husband or wife, or am I misremembering that? It's a weird thing because it's like we don't know whether these two are supposed to be whether they're supposed to represent a husband and wife, but the actual models, I've heard conflicting things. I've heard that this is actually the artist dentist and this is actually like the artist's daughter, right? So I heard that, but then I also heard that like this is the daughter to the dentist. But I have heard like different things where like, these two they might be meant to show a husband and wife, but the actual models were like they had a different relationship. I unfortunately don't remember which it was, but we could look into it. So American Gothic. All right, let's see what this says. He does have the look of a dentist somehow. No offense to dentists. No, I kind of feel the same. When I learned that, I was also like, yeah, he kind of looks like a dentist. Let's see what it says here. The figures were modeled after Woods' sister, Nanwood Graham, and Byron McKeeby, the Wood family dentist. Yeah, okay. So it's the artist's sister and then the artist dentist. Can you imagine? Like, I know this kind of implies that the dentist was like closer to the family because back in those days, especially if you're in a small town, like everyone already knows everyone. But can you imagine like being an artist and being like, you're at the dentist and you're like, hey, can I ask a favor? Can I ask a favor? Can you be a model in my painting? That kind of tickles me. Oh, they even have the house. Oh, that's an interesting house because this window is very gothic. Is that why it's called American Gothic? Because like the window is actually based off of like medieval Gothic architecture, like French Gothic architecture. I never quite put that together. Well, now we know, right? Now we know. We do have an ad break coming up. So I do also need to get some sippies of water. I've been yapping. So I remember that from your Gothic architecture stream. Yeah, right, right. So let's do this. We're here in the cub corner. I need to get some water. So it's gonna be a little bit before ads start, but I will see you guys in about 3.5 minutes. All right? It's all right. It's all right. We're back. We're back, and I tried this thing that Sklimbo says he does during his ad breaks. He says that he, like, occasionally does, like, exercises during ad breaks. So I tried doing squats just now. Just to get the blood flowing, right? I did some little bear squats. I'm a little winded, but shouldn't be too bad, right? Beans even made a joke of it. He was like, imagine you're just like, I have makeups. I have to do it. But let's get back to it, shall we? Let's get back to it. We'll do my specialty, not squats, art history. So let me just set up my screen again. We were researching American Gothic. Oh yeah, so we found out, yeah, that the wife is actually modeled after Woods' sister, and then the husband was the dentist. This is a self-portrait of Grant Wood. And then, yeah, we made the realization that, like, it's called American Gothic because there's a Gothic-style window in the background. I don't know why I never put that together. I just thought it was, like, Gothic as in, like... I don't know what I thought. I think I just thought that, like, oh, Gothic as in, like, this is just, like, your quintessential, I don't know, American family. I don't know why I acquainted that to the word Gothic, but whatever. Whatever. Let's get back to it, shall we? So we're talking about regionalism. This is a good example of regionalism. Let me know if the music... I think the music might actually be too quiet, but let me know if it's distracting in any way. Comes around. It did come out as a reaction to the Great Depression and fell out of use with the onset of World War II. Yeah, so I put here conservative and traditionalist. So that doesn't necessarily mean... Like, nowadays when it comes to like, using these words of, like, conservative, traditionalist, there is a little bit of not baggage, but like the connotation, denotation, I forget which is which, but the connotation might be a little bit different nowadays because things do feel a little bit more I'm forgetting, why am I forgetting my words? They're just so like radically like opposed to each other, so we might be quick to say that like, oh, something is conservative and traditionalist, and if you identify as like left-leaning or liberal, then it's like, oh, then there might immediately be like a negative connotation, right? But here in this context, conservative and traditional just means that it's closer to like the ideals of like I guess like the quote-unquote American ideals of the day. But more so, this has to do with reacting against modern avant-garde art. They specifically name French art as what they're like reacting to, but what this means is that they're reacting against this idea of like modern avant-garde art. So they're reacting against stuff like surrealism, abstraction, cubism, stuff like this, right? Stuff like this. The stuff that is meant to kind of like make you question like the meaning of art, and they're instead returning to more like realistic styles, even though some of them do make use of like more cubist and like avant-garde styles. It's funny because this is by, oh my god, what was his name? I think this is Thomas Hart Benton, I want to say. He didn't identify as an abstract artist or like as a modern artist, but his style very much looks like that of a modern artist. So they were kind of like reacting against like abstract art, basically. There's also a little bit of a nostalgic element to it, because of this idea of like portraying simpler times before like the advent of like industrialization. You do also kind of see that, like, if I could make a comparison, it'd be kind of like the idea of us wanting to return to simpler times before the advent of AI, right? Before the advent of like hyper capitalist like technology and society. Scenes that lean more towards urban... Scenes that lean more towards urban themes are more of social realism, which we'll get to as well. And then there is a triumvirate. There is a trio that is known for this style, and it is Grant Wood, who did American Gothic. He also did this really cool picture of Paul Revere, doing his famous like the British are coming, the British are coming. But the style's also very interesting because it reminds me of like a toy box, and it actually reminds me of another artist that we looked at during our art appreciation stream, Koshansky. We looked at this artist before, Leonard Koshansky, who is more contemporary, but if you look at the way that he draws things like houses, it looks very similar. Right? So like if you look at the way that he draws houses and streets here, the way that it almost resembles like a little toy box in a way, it kind of reminds me of this. So the Koshansky might have been influenced by Grant Wood's style in this regard. I think I remember this image being in a history book when I was in elementary or middle school, the Rivera one. Yeah, I could see that. It's a very nice art piece. It's very like unique with how it frames everything and how it kind of like everything is kind of illuminated by presumably moonlight, right? But there's also a little bit of like candlelight on the inside as well. It feels contemporary, oddly enough. So that's pretty. It's a cool illustration to use. If we look at other examples, I believe this is the work of John Stewart Curry. He was an interesting one because when I was first doing research last night, I immediately saw the part where he's like, oh, he didn't agree with like, you know, the left-leaning politics of Diego Rivera. And I was like, what kind of person is he then? But actually looking at his art, or rather like reading his story, it's actually a very interesting one because he's from the state of Kansas in the US, but he ended up moving elsewhere, I think Connecticut. But he liked making art of Kansas, of his home state. But because of some of the topics that he went into, a lot of like what's even like the demonym for people from Kansas, Kansanians, Kansanites, but the people of Kansas, or rather like the government people of Kansas, they did not like his works, and they even called for his works to be like taken down from where they were hung, and this like greatly disappointed him because, you know, this is him like paying homage to where he grew up, and the state where he grew up doesn't want them, you know. That included this painting called, I think, Prelude to Tragedy, and it was during this time called Bleeding Kansas, where was this during the Civil War, where people like the state of Kansas wasn't sure if it was going to enter, or whether like what side it was going to join the Civil War in. Here in the center is supposed to be an old version of John Brown, who was a staunch abolitionist, but for his time he was seen as like a traitor to, you know, like the foundations of like America. Yeah, Matthew, the more I read about John Brown, the more I'm like, oh, this guy rocks. But in the time he was seen as like a traitor to the country. I thought that was John Brown. Yeah, it's John Brown. He's like a staunch abolitionist, and he was even like calling for like revolt of like slaves to revolt, to like stand up and revolt, right? I've been reading the John Brown Isekai on Royal Road. Oh, nice. Yeah, you told me about that one. But yeah, because of this portrayal, like this painting in particular was like rejected by the Kansanite like government. And it like greatly disappointed Curry for that reason. But this is another painting of his. This is like a family that is escaping from like a tornado, right? So, and then I believe these two are, I want to say, the works of Thomas Hart Benton. So yeah, the whole thing with regionalism is that it's showing this like small town rural America, as it says, like it's the regions of America. So this one is a little bit more rural. If we want to go urban, then we're going to be looking at social realism. So very similar. It's trying to show the reality of what life is like, but in like urban environments. One of my favorite artists is kind of part of this school of thought, and that's Edward Hopper. He's one of my favorite artists, and I kind of went a little bit into the reasoning when I was on Discord last night. I made this realization that like, even though his art is about this idea of isolation, there's like kind of a lonely feeling to a lot of it, because in a lot of his paintings, if you look at like the figures, even if there's like more than one person, they're always kind of isolated from themselves. Like all of them you know, there's very little sense of overlap other than like these two figures over here, right? Like their hands are slightly overlapping, but in a lot of his works, the figures are usually shown and framed in a way that it kind of like shows a feeling of isolation, separation, and maybe even loneliness. But I remember thinking that like a lot of these are also, especially if you're like an introvert like myself, they can also be kind of calming in a way. It's very quiet in the way of like, if you are easily overwhelmed by like the hustle and bustle of like ordinary life, there's something about this that like, while it can also feel very lonely, it can also be a little comforting as well, of like, this is a nice little pit stop away from everything. So that's why I personally like his artwork a lot. Even it like even if it goes against what the artist himself like intended, once again, that's just like an interpretation that's personal to me. If you also like agree with it, cool. But if you disagree with it and you do think that like, no, this is pretty isolating, this is pretty lonely, you know, like slash negative, like that's totally fine as well. But that's just my interpretation. So yeah, it does kind of go into like the reality of like urban living. While like while both rural and urban have their differences and how they like are I guess processing the Great Depression, they have their own things that they're going through, right? Also part of social realism is photography. So these two photos are by I want to say Walker, this is Walker Evans and this is Dorothea Lange. They both showed pictures that are like, if you like read about the Great Depression in a high school textbook, you probably saw one or both of these photos. More likely the Dorothea Lange one. And there's always like this weird like, I think, misinformation where it's like, oh, this mom is only like 20 years old and look how aged up she looks because of the horrors of the Great Depression. And I think she actually is just older. like yes, it was stressful this time. But I don't know, I feel like I've seen a lot of people trying to like age them down and be like, like look how much the Depression has aged them. And it's like, I do think that they're just older. like, you know? But there's also other photographers that like showed this idea of social realism. So Jacob Riis, Lewis Hine is another one. There's also a bunch of artists from what's called the Ashcan School. Ancient by VTuber standards, yeah, basically. But yeah, so both of these movements tried to show like the, you know, as it says in the on the tin, the reality of like the social state, you know. So there's also a little bit of overlap here with the Mexican mural renaissance. So this one was really interesting to research because a lot of, like I said, a lot of my research, because of like how many resources I could find, is very Western centric. But here I was able to find this like well, Mexico is still in the West, right? But like I was able to like do a little bit of research too on like the advent of like not advent, but this idea of muralism in Mexico. And kind of like how regionalism had a big three, so did the mural renaissance. They also had their big three, but here they're called, instead of the triumvirate, they're known as Los Tres Grandes, right? The three large, big guys, I want to say. But first, let me get into what this is. So this also had its start in the 1920s. So the specific, what's it called? The specific like context for this is a little bit different. Instead of coming from the Great Depression, this is coming out of the coming out of the Mexican Revolution. So Mexico, now freshly like independent, and or actually, is this when we say Mexican Revolution, this is against Spain? Or is this way after? It's primarily a civil war. There we go. It's primarily a civil war. I was like looking at like, wait a minute. Like it says revolution, but is it kind of like the Philippine and American Revolution where it's like against like a leading power, you know? But this is post-Mexican Revolution, and the government wanted to sponsor this movement that created and promoted a new national identity. So what that means is like, after this big civil war where all of these different parts of the country were fighting with each other, they wanted to promote this idea of like, well, now we're together again. Now we're together, and now like we are one people, and we want to promote the idea of being one people. You did actually see something very similar in the Philippines as well, but it was also a little bit later during, I want to say like the 1950s, 60s, into the 70s because of the Marcos regime. And it comes this idea of like a nationalistic pride and a like single identity for a nation. It has a lot of pros and cons, we'll say that. Like I said, I'm coming from like the Filipino perspective. Well, I can't even say that I'm coming from the Filipino perspective because I'm Phil-Am, but like my knowledge comes from this perspective. Texas Sunburn, hello. We're taking a look at Mexican murals of the 1930s right now. But it does have its pros and cons because the idea of like a singular national identity can be good to just have everyone of like a singular mindset, be prideful in like where you came from and stuff. But sometimes it does come at the cost of people who are not part of the dominant, how do I say this, cultural group. So if I were to make a comparison to like the Philippines, for example, when they tried to create this like national identity of just like Filipinos, right? They would pick and choose from different cultures within the Philippines. But it would be predominantly skewed towards like the Tagalog people. A little bit of Bisaya too, a little bit of Ilocano. But then if you were part of a group that wasn't those three, then your culture wasn't really being included in the national culture, if that makes sense. And if it was kind of a pastiche. It was kind of like a not a mockery, but like kind of like a weak mimicry of your culture, so to speak. So that's kind of like the pitfalls that I see with this as well, is that like, oh, if you're making a national identity, is it going to be like more so talking about like the Aztecs, but is it going to talk about the Maya? Is it going to talk about Texcoco? Is it going to talk about like Oaxaca, right? That I actually don't know. So if anyone does have any like information on that, a little bit of like background on that, let me know, because I could be completely wrong. This could have been like a net positive like overall, but I'm just coming from like what I know of like the Philippine perspective of how they tried to do it. But yeah, basically this was kind of like the context. Like they're trying to build this new national identity, and they are commissioning these artists to kind of like promote this idea. So you have here the three very prominent ones are Diego Rivera, Jose Clemente Orozco, and David Alfaro Siqueiros. And they all kind of have their own flavors too of murals and artwork. So Diego Rivera might be, at least in my opinion, like one of the more well-known ones, especially if you don't study Mexican history or Mexican art history that much. Because I definitely heard of Diego Rivera, mostly because I was a fan of Frida Kahlo, right? If you didn't know, they were married. This is the both of them. This is Frida and Diego Rivera. If you saw the Selma Hayek movie, you probably know, but also if you studied the history, you know that they had a very tumultuous relationship, these two. It is very explosive, but also very passionate. Like, they'd have explosive arguments. They'd cheat on each other. Both of them would cheat on each other. Frida, even with the same gender. Like, so. And she even cheated, allegedly, even cheated on Diego Rivera with Leon Trotsky. Like, allegedly. That's how it's shown in the movie. I don't know if it actually happened, but also Diego would like notoriously like cheat on Frida as well, leading to them having these explosive like arguments with each other. Artists. Exactly. So I know Diego Rivera from that, but if you actually like take a look at his artwork, it's very he's known for like kind of like building a narrative and being kind of like the most accessible. Like his seems to be like the most clear out of all of them. This is a really cool one. I forget the name of it. I think it's like the Ruling of Man. Let me see. Diego. I should have written down the names of these. Man at the Crossroads, I want to say. Yeah, this is Man at the Crossroads. This has an interesting story too, because this was originally, so let me give you a little bit more context here. So even though the movement started in the 1920s, right out of the Mexican Revolution, by the 1930s, the muralists were starting to get less work in Mexico, so they actually looked north to the US. They started to one by one migrate over to the US to get some more work there. So there was a version of this painted on, I forget. Let me actually, the Rockefeller Center in New York City. If you were to try to find this painting though, you will not find it because eventually it was taken down and destroyed because of the presence of Vladimir Lenin here. Because Diego Rivera, if you didn't know, was also a staunch communist. Same with his wife Frida. So they were staunch leftists, staunch like communists. And of course, you're not going to be putting a communist on the Rockefeller Center in New York City. So despite many times that Rockefeller tried to convince Diego Rivera to take his face out, Diego Rivera was even like, I'm not going to take his face out. What I can do is I can add Abraham Lincoln right next to him. And Rockefeller was like, nah, like, that's not happening. So eventually that mural was destroyed, but Diego Rivera actually recreated it back in, is it at Mexico? I don't know where he did eventually remake it. Initial controversy, recreation, aftermath, man controller of the universe. I actually don't know where he, oh, here, I think. Palacio de Bellas Artes? Where's this at? This is in Mexico City, Cuauhtemoc. Painting Lenin on a Rockefeller building is like a study in opposites. No, for real, for real. So eventually, Rivera did remake this in Mexico City. So you can still see this version nowadays. I think. I'm pretty sure. So Diego Rivera is known to be like the more like narrative focused one. Jose Clemente Orozco is known as like the most critical of the revolution. I believe this is his. I believe it's this this mural over here. So he was the one that was like more likely to show like the negatives of, yeah, the Palace of Fine Arts. Thank you, Pex. Cool. Actually, let me look again to see if this is Orozco or if this is Siqueiros. Siqueiros. Oh no, did I not put Prometheus on here? I didn't. I thought I put the Prometheus painting. Okay, see Prometheus by Orozco at Pomona College. Okay, I'm actually gonna replace this one. There we go. So this is a mural that you can find in California, in a California college called Cal Poly Pomona. It's the California Polytechnic Colleges. I have a couple of friends that went there, actually. So you can still see this one. This one is a painting of Prometheus from Greek mythology. But Orozco was just known as the artist that is that was the most critical of the revolution, and that was more willing to show the dark side of the revolution in terms of like the violence that it brought on, the big upheaval of like tradition that it brought on. But like he also went on to like create artwork like this. That is just, I don't know. I like the form of it. It's very like breathtaking. I haven't seen it. Prometheus from Hades 2, exactly. He is the character designer. Orozco is in fact the character designer from Prometheus from Hades 2. And then the last one of Los Tres Grandes is David Alfaro Siqueiros. And he was the most politically radical. So we do have boobies on here, but it is artistic nudity. So John Twitch, don't do it, man. Don't do it. It's artistic nudity. But it's funny because I know that like Rivera and Frida Kahlo were staunch like communists and leftists, but it was like, oh, I knew nothing. I didn't know about Siqueiros' game. Like, if you want leftist communists, it's Siqueiros. 100%. This one, I believe, is a mural called Democracy Breaks Her Chains. It's very emotive, and his technique is also pretty radical too, because not only were his politics very radical, his technique was radical. He's very loyal to like the communist regime, even like the Stalinist communist regime, to the point where when Trotsky was being I think he came over to Mexico for asylum, like to escape from Lenin's regime. And that's where the whole story of like, oh, allegedly Frida Kahlo like slept with Trotsky. There was actually an assassination attempt on Leon Trotsky by Siqueiros. Like, The boy was the one that was trying to kill him. Let's see. I saw a joke the other day that Prometheus was the inventor of the hot take, and that lives rent-free in my head. I love that. He is, though. He is the inventor of the hot take. He's like, hottest it takes. I think the human should have fire. Free to dislike, but you know that I'm right, Zeus. What are you doing with that eagle? Trotsky did flee to Mexico, yeah, and he failed, so they sent somebody else to finish the job. Yeah, he did fail. He did, yeah. Yeah, I just love the Salma Hayek movie a lot. Like, I still think about it a lot. But yeah, that's why like all this kind of like circles back onto what we were talking about, because regionalism, social realism, they are very linked together, because as they're both reactions to both modern art, but also the Great Depression. And then the Mexican mural renaissance also features a little bit of social realism, because it's trying to portray the realities of like what's going on with like the working class, especially because some of these muralists are like more left-leaning and they want to show the struggle of the working class, right? The proletariat, not the bourgeois. And then Mexican mural renaissance also overlaps with like Frida Kahlo, for example, with her also like becoming a surrealist as well. So all these are pretty interconnected in their own way. So with that is a little bit of the background of art in the 1930s. Of course, there's a lot that I'm like not going into detail with. There's a lot that I just didn't have time to research. But if there's other stuff that you guys know about the 1930s, please feel free to let me know in the chat. I'm always like so down to learn more about any one of these, right? Because like I said, this is the first time I'm really learning about the Mexican mural renaissance. Like I said, my only knowledge of like Diego Rivera was like, oh yeah, that's Frida Kahlo's husband that used to cheat on her a lot, you know? Like, I never really like gave him a chance or like really got to behold like how beautiful some of his art is. Like, yeah, he might have not been a good person, but like he still like was for the working class. He still like supported like the ideals of the revolution. Stuff like that, but he also cheated on his wife. But also, like, if you see some of his other works, there's one that I saw at the LA County Museum of Art that I just love. There's something very nostalgic about it. Like, I feel like in the 90s, every household had this painting. Let me see if I can find it. Diego Rivera. It wasn't made in the 1930s though, but it was it's like a woman with flowers. The flower vendor. Let me see if I can find it. Dia de Flores, Flower Day. I'll show you guys. I've seen this one before in person, and I just think it's very nice. This one. It's also just very, like, I don't know, just the shapes and, like, the symmetry and everything about it is just very satisfying. Surreal to think that there were actual KGB spies living in Mexico actually plotting to kill people. Yes, 100%. The Alcatraz flowers. I think so. I've seen these flowers before. They're very, I don't know, there's something so nostalgic. Like, I do feel like I would see either this painting or like recreations of it in like a lot of houses in the 90s. Like, it was very like fashionable to have something like this. Even if you weren't of Mexican heritage, like, because I would only, like, when I was little, I shared a little bit of this on Discord last night that, like, I didn't really, like, go out to friends' houses that much growing up. So any house that I went to was, like, a relative's house or, like, my parents' friends, right? So, like, I feel like there was just, like, a lot of, like, Filipino households with, like, this painting for some reason. Gonna play a fun gamble and drink some coffee. It will either keep me awake for like two hours more or knock me out in 30 minutes. Ooh, that's an interesting gamble. Good luck with that. That's a gamble for me too. Like, sometimes if it's not coffee, it's matcha. And like, the matcha will either knock me out or I will not be able to sleep. So good luck with that. What usually helps me sleep if I can't sleep though is reading. So if you have a book handy, I would recommend that. But all right, nice. We did all of our like lecture part all in an hour and a half. So that leaves us a little bit more time, let's say like an hour or so for research. So we'll do some research together right now. Yeah, good luck on the wakefulness gotcha. If it knocks you down, does that mean you have ADHD? Yeah, that's what I heard. But however, I also did hear that it doesn't necessarily have to be an ADHD thing. It might be a dehydration thing. Because I've heard of that too. I heard that like, oh, if coffee makes you sleepy, you might have ADHD. But the thing is, like, I don't know if I show any other symptoms of ADHD other than just having like hyperfixations all the time. But like, I feel like my definition of a hyperfixation isn't the actual like, because when people say like hyperfixations, I've seen people say that like, oh, when you have an actual hyperfixation, you forget to eat, you know? Like you don't shower, you don't like use the bathroom, like you are literally hyperfixated. And like I've been obsessed with things before. Like I'm still in my like dinosaur and Digimon, you know, like special interest phase right now. But I don't know if I've ever been to the point where like I don't eat, you know? When I was in my 20s though, it did kind of get into that point when I was like playing like the Assassin's Creed games. Because back then I didn't really like, the only thing on my plate was college, like community college, and I would just like go to class and go home anyway. So if I didn't have class, my whole day was like, because I also lived with my parents back then, so I didn't have to worry about rent. My day would be wake up, play Assassin's Creed, occasionally like take a shower and like go downstairs and like maybe scrounge for food and then go to bed, you know, or like play more Assassin's Creed and then go to bed. Like, but I would still remember to eat, you know, like I don't know if I've gotten to the point where I've just like been so hyperfixated that I didn't eat. There are times where like Beans has to remind me to eat, but you know, I still feel the hunger. I don't know, since when I take it on in the morning, I'm awake, but if I take it midday or night, I'm gambling. It's true. Yeah, right? So I've heard that, like, it might not be ADHD. It might be linked to dehydration. Because if you have ADHD and you have problems with, like, you know, like, executive function and, like, forgetting to eat or drink when you're hyperfixated on something, then there's a link there, right? So I am chronically dehydrated. So I do think that makes sense. In fact, I'm gonna sip some water right now. I was editing a video at work and I was trying to get a new technique to work and wound up being like 3 hours late on lunch. Oh no. I feel that though. I feel that. Like when you get into a flow state, what sucks is that sometimes I feel like I get into a flow state like late at night. And like when I was in my 20s, I was able to just like stay up late, right? But nowadays, like for one, I do get really tired, and then for two, I always want to like go to bed around the same time as Beans does. So like whenever it's time for him to call it, then like, you know, we both call it no matter what we're doing. However, he does play Overwatch sometimes, like up until the late night. So like sometimes there are like times where both of us are just like, you know, in the middle of our thing. But sometimes I get into a flow state, like with the research for the 1930s. Last night I got into a flow state late at night. Like, hey Ross, hello, based Overwatch night gamer. Overwatch, the only Overwatch that ever was. My hyperfixation right now is Project Zomboid on Random server. Yeah, you know, well, if it gives you joy, right? If it's like the Marie Kondo thing, if it sparks joy, why not, right? As long as you remember to eat and use the bathroom. Hello, Aros. Hello. We're talking about the 1930s. We were just looking at like different art movements from the 1930s, and now the ultimate goal of this series is for me to get good at time guesser. So we're gonna skip over into the realm of trying to identify cars, fashion, and graphic design. But yeah, what was I saying? When I was doing the research for this last night, I got into a flow state. Like I couldn't stop researching like all the artisan stuff for like this stream, and I realized it was like 11 already, and I was like, I should go to bed soon. And like Beans had already, like, I don't remember if like it was him or me that like already like made the bed and stuff, but I was like, oh man, I gotta hit the hay. I wish I could like stay up a little bit more. But like I said, there are also times where I'm ready to hit the hay, but he's playing Overwatch. So he might even play tonight. I did, even though I don't know much about Overwatch, he does show me like trailers and stuff. He did show me the most recent one with Jetpack Cat. Have you guys heard of Jetpack Cat? If you guys didn't know, it's a new Overwatch character. It's a cat on a jetpack. It's adorable. It's so cute. And then there's other ones too. There's like 4 other characters, but the one that matters is Jetpack Cat. It's funny, I used to stay awake more like 4 years ago, but now my friends call me the old man of the server since I sleep at like 8 or 9 on the dot. And if I stay past that, they'll tell me to go to sleep, old man. That's how I feel too when like sometimes I get messages at like 11 p.m. or 12 a.m. and I'm already asleep by then, and I wake up to the message and I'm like, oh no, what are you doing messaging me that late? But then I feel like they're wondering like, why is she asleep by this time? I'm old. I'm usually in bed by like 11, you know? Cass said that he wanted to play him. It's so cute. Like, if have you guys seen the videos where Jetpack Cat is like, you're in the POV and his little paw is like moving the joystick and like is pressing the button. It's just so cute. It's just so cute. I still wouldn't play Overwatch though. But if you want Overwatch content, check out Beans the Bear and Mega Bronson. Mega Bronson just got affiliate. I don't know if he's still streaming right now, but yeah, check them out. It's been an interesting presentation. Nice. But yeah, it's now the time to get good at Time Guesser, right? So there's some stuff that I want to research on the fly with you guys. We could learn together. I did look into some cars. I did even write down the names of them. I just don't remember the order. I want to say this is the Model A. We'll find out. But let's look into fashion first. So when we play Time Guesser, we want to be able to like pinpoint like, yeah, this is 1930s fashion. The only thing is the source that I'm using, they seem to be more so based in like this is an article from Vogue, right? And Vogue isn't really going to be like the clothing. This is like the fashion design of the day. So this is like what the rich folks might be wearing, but not necessarily what the like poorer and middle class folks are going to be wearing, right? So like this might be more closer though. This might be a little bit closer if it's like a photograph like this rather than an illustration, because this is more so the style that they're trying to sell you rather than the style that people are actually wearing. Because I ran into this problem when I started looking into like male fashion. Because here, like half of the page, like 3/4 of the page are on female fashion, and then you get to like men's trends, and it's these two pictures and a paragraph, and that's it. Like, so let's see. I heard mention of a Jetpack Cat and people that message at inappropriate times. It's never inappropriate. It's never inappropriate. Hello, Mega Bronson. Hello. Yes, we were talking about Jetpack Cat. Beans was watching the trailer. Yeah, Clark Gable. Exactly. He's pretty handsome. And I think this is also, do you start seeing like facial hair at this point? At least within like middle and like working class folks? Just dudes in suits, that's all we need. But I got to this point, it's like, it's just a paragraph compared to like the female fashion portions where it's like, you know, 7 subtitles. Like, so I ended up trying to look more into like male fashion at the time, and I found this really cool website by Gentleman's Gazette that talks about what men really wore in the 1930s, and they seem to have a whole like series. I don't know if it just goes up to the 1960s and starts in the 1900s, but it's worth looking at. Oh no, it literally says it right here. Like it literally says it right here. But it's cool because it does go into like very specific things, and it tries to go into like what the working class was wearing at the time. There's an article on Wikipedia on 1920s Western fashion. Oh, okay. Wait, Western as in like, you know, America, Australia, Europe? Or is it like Western as in like the Wild West, right? Well, actually, wouldn't really be the Wild West anymore at that point, right? What about the cool suits? The zoot suits? The zoot suit riots were a thing. It sounds familiar, the zoot suit riots. If you could remind me what decade that was? Because it's like, I feel like is that contemporary? Is that more contemporary? Or is that all the way back in like the 1920s, 1930s? Right? More of the Wild West by that point, though the Dust Bowl was pretty bad. That's true. That's true. But I kind of like this picture because it says the Great Depression showed the daily attire of the average man in the early half of the 1930s. So yeah, like very baggy clothing, the hats, right? Zoot suit riots were, after WW2, okay. Yeah, because I feel like, wasn't that also part of like, because I feel like I've heard of like Filipinos that came to America around that time were also involved, right? But was it more so with like Mexican Americans? I need to do some research on that, especially if it's after World War II. Turn on the light. Let's see. What men really wore. Let's do some menswear research first, and then we'll go into women's wear. But like I said, the Vogue one is pretty good to like get a groove of like what women were inspired by at the time. But I think we might need to find a source that actually shows pictures of like what they were actually wearing, especially if they were working class, you know? So let's see what we got here. World War I was long over. There were new products on the market. Working conditions had improved and class relations had improved as well. The weekend was invented? Oh my gosh, wait. Yeah, it's kind of like when we were talking about paleontology, right? Where it's like, oh my gosh, grass wasn't a thing until like dinosaurs came around. You telling me there's like millions of years where there was no grass to touch, right? Same with like, there was a point where we didn't have the bacteria that causes things to rot after they die. It's like, oh my god, there was a time before that. So hearing this, like the weekend had been invented. It's like, I know for a fact they're not talking about the artist The Weeknd. But it's like, whoa, the concept of a weekend, of like days off, of like government calendar mandated days off. Time before gravity was invented. That's the big crunch or the big bang. Did any of you guys watch the Sklimbo, like, what's it called? A conspiracy theory stream earlier today? That was funny because there was a conspiracy theory that said gravity isn't real. A lot of those were like, he picked some really good ones. I got a kick out of a lot of them. But it's funny because like, if you study astronomy, it's funny because gravity is literally one of the first things. Like, it's like gravity and energy are literally one of the first things that like, you know, came about. But it's a conspiracy theory. What does it matter? It's all just like funny hee hee ha ha, you know? What does it matter? It's just one of those like, actually, astronomically speaking, gravity is one of the first things that came about. Apparently, some servicemen attacked and stripped some zoot suit wearing folks because they thought all the fabric was unpatriotic, and led to Mexican Americans and Latino Americans rioting in response. That's my like most basic familiarity with the zoot suit riots, because my impression was that the reason why they were wearing oversized suits was because they couldn't get it fitted for themselves, because unless you were white, like you couldn't have you couldn't have anything, right? So like a lot of, I mean, that's the same reason why you see like what is considered stereotypical like gang attire is oversized clothing, is because a lot of folks in like lower income neighborhoods are getting like hand-me-down clothes that don't necessarily fit them, right? That too. Mexican Americans were dancing with the white. Yeah, exactly. So that was one of those other like inciting factors, quote unquote. But yeah, where was I going into this? We were talking about astronomy for a second, but anyways, average person in the 30s life looked a lot dire. Many lost it all, lived in poverty, and it definitely showed in their daily attire. Unlike the previous 2 decades, men now wore more casual outfits. That meant more sportswear, fewer stiff hats, and starch collars. Yeah, because like we didn't go all into like the daily wear for men in the 1920s. But I did a little bit of digging in this page, and if you look at their hats, you have more of like the these like more starchy like stiffened hats. The fedora, milady, the actual fedora, mind you. Higher crowns, wide hat bands. There, I like that this Gentleman's Gazette writer goes into like very good detail of like what kind of hats we're looking at, because if you compare it to here in the 1930s, oh wait, wrong one. This one. They're wearing more of like the like newspaper boy hats, right? The flat cap. So we can write that down in our notes. Zoom in. Flat cap hats. We'll put here like more casual wear due to the Great Depression. Let's see. In England, upper and middle class gents would wear the bowler hats and the Homburg hats. The bowler hats? Or bowler. In England, in jolly good England, the flat caps are stylish. I kind of do like the flat caps. The like newspaper boy, right? You had the pancake style flat cap as well as the wide. So some did still wear fedoras. Or bowler in England. Sometimes fedora, but wide. Okay, like this. This kind of reminds me of like the gangster style thing. You see? Put the money in the bag. Johnny Tightlips, where'd they shoot you? I ain't saying nothing. What do I tell the doctor? Tell him to suck a lemon. Wait, what does that say? Highly sought after, you can fetch good prices at places like eBay. That's so funny. It's like if you want to look like a 1930s kind of guy. Clean-shaven face was still very popular in the 30s. Most men could be seen sporting the baby face look, while older gentlemen often had a mustache. Like Clark Gable, Vincent Price. The thin pencil mustaches, okay. Wide variety of facial hair did exist at the time. Of course, with men going hatless, the hairstyles became more important and changed. Okay. Oh, so sometimes they did go hatless. Wait, what does it say here? That being said, young men started maybe skipping the hat and it wasn't that big of a taboo. Oh, interesting. I skipped over that part. It's a great, younger men would go hatless, but if they did wear hats, then it was the flat cap hats. What else? Oh, but then if they didn't wear hats, with styled hair. And then not facial hair, but baby face. Or a thin pencil mustache. Okay, let's see. What else can we find here? Ooh, these are nice styles. Gone were the days where men just brushed back their hair, cut it short, or military style. Men's hair in the 30s was now typically longer and pomade was used to style it. I see. Pomade style hair. I do like the waves. I like the waves a lot. I remember I had a student one time that, like, I don't know, he was just a joy. He was just a joy to have in the classroom. But for those who don't know, I work a job where, like, I only see kids like the same class of kids once or twice for like a 45-minute workshop, and then I just never see them again. So I don't always remember the students that I get, but some of them just stick out. There was one kid who he was black and he came in with like a do-rag, right? I don't know if that's actually what you call it, like the covering over the hair. And like that's not an issue at all, but like he did his art project and stuff, and then near the end of class he had such a good time, and I just remember he like ran up to me and he's like, Miss teacher, do you want to see my waves? And I don't know, part of me was like, I felt so honored. I was like, oh yes. Like, yeah, I want to see your waves. He took off the do-rag and boy had like the best, like, sorry, I shouldn't say boy, but the kid, the student had like, he had like these waves, right? And they just look so good. And I was like, dang, thanks for showing me that. Your hair looks really good. Nice. And he was just so excited. He put like the do-rag back on and then he like ran off because the bell had rung. But I don't know, it was just such a precious moment. He was just so excited to be like, Miss, you want to see my waves? Oh man. Let's see. Okay, eyewear. In terms of eyewear, the 30, yeah, very wholesome, right? Super wholesome. 30 saw a transition to bigger and wider eyeglasses. In previous decades, you had smaller lenses. Now things were bigger and more decorative. Materials had also changed. Gold-plated and silver wire frames, but also cellulite and backlight. Bridges were elevated and no longer set on the nodes, which meant that glasses now had little nose pads. Oh, this is the beginning of nose pads on the glasses. Ooh, if the party is over. Bigger glasses and eyewear with nose pads. Just for a while. Sunglasses were increasingly popular. You definitely had them if you could afford them. Okay. Shirts! In the US, 30 shirts definitely had an attached soft collar that became, oh, you would attach the collar? Is that just a shirt? Wearing a shirt with a detachable soft collar. Oh! Huh. I never heard of such a thing. Well, I'm used to like the t-shirt, right? When I hear shirt, I think t-shirt. Is this just like a fancier, like Like, what does this look like without the collar, right? Oh, I guess like, well, that's just a polo shirt, right? Wait, I'm getting ahead of myself. You can still wear these starch detachable collar shirts for everyday wear. You had the softer ones. Sometimes softer collars were still detachable because it meant you could just wash the collar and not the body. Wouldn't that be kind of yucky though? While most people today think of detachable collars as white contrasting collars, they would sometimes also sell a number of detachable collars of the same fabric. I'm interested. I want to see what this looks like now. Shirt with detachable collar. And die with a smile. Oh, I see. To you. This is what they mean by... So there's this type of detached collar, but there's also this kind where it's just like straight up like a fake collar. I see. So would it be... I like trying to understand this, you know? So I think this would be the collar here. Because when I think of a shirt with a detachable collar, I end up thinking of like, have you guys ever heard of this terminology, a Mandarin collar? Like something like this, right? Like, and then you attach the folded collars on top of it. That's what I think of, but I'm not sure if that's what that actually is, right? So is this what it looks like without the collar? I'm still a little confused, but it's interesting. Like this? Interesting. Interesting. But okay, so they had detached collars. Gotta go have fun, everyone. Thanks for tuning in, Peck School. I appreciate ya. And then shirts with detachable collars. Mega Bronson, you got your sticker. And then we have the polo shirts as well. Polo shirts, ties and bow ties. They still wore ties and bow ties, but much shorter. Okay. Oh, we're getting into the tips of the bow ties? Things are different. Untipped tie requires hand rolling. Labor is more expensive and fabrics have become less expensive. Oh, interesting. So they... Oh. Untipped. Interesting. Vests and waistcoats. I do like the look of vests. The only time I've ever worn a vest in my life was for a cosplay. But I do like them. And not because I'm a vestie. They were no longer mandatory. Central heating was advancing and popping up in more and more office buildings. Oh, is that why suits were like more like heavy back then? Because there wasn't like air conditioning? Or central heating, I guess? The opposite? Double-breasted suits were popular, so you could skip it there and just have a new, fresher, less stiff look. However, men who still wore waistcoats and vests wanted a slightly different shape. This became longer, so you could see decorative buttons and buttonholes that were never meant to be buttoned, but just there for the looks. In any case, you wanted the tips of your waistcoats to cover your waistband, so no shirt or tie would ever poke out. Decorative buttons and buttonholes. Okay. Waistcoats. Interesting. Wait, I'm trying to understand what this says. The tips became longer so you could see the decorative buttons and oh, so they used to be hidden under here? Okay, let's put this in here. Vests and waistcoats with decorative buttons. I know this is a Chapel Rowan song, but it keeps making me think of like Marina and the Diamonds. And a little bit of Lana Del Rey too. It feels very 2010s. If you look closely at the bottom, you'll see what people call a shark tooth shape where you can't button the button. Oh, really? Interesting. Like here? In terms of pockets, vests typically had 4, a chest pocket on either side and a pocket below that. Wait, really? Y'all are out here, men in the 1930s are out here with freaking 4 pockets and I can't have 1? I can't have a single. Ooh, Paramore. Gotta head out as well, but thank you for the education. Thank you, Battle Crackers. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate you. I think I should like start to speed things up and get to women's fashion, and then we gotta get into cars as well. Oh, we also have an ad break already. Okay, this is really my sign to like speed it up, you know? But all right, jackets, a shift towards athletic cuts. Is it actually the end of it? No, there's still like quite a bit more. I might just need to look at this at my own time. The trousers. Cause this does seem, if I read this to like length, knickerbockers. Look at that. It's I like this style. It's very long. Or very like wide, right? And shoes. It feels like if I read this at length, I'll be able to like clock the 1930s on Time Guesser, you know? But okay, I think we are gonna go to ad break. Let's put you guys over in recess. But okay, I'll see you guys in about 3.5 minutes, and then we'll continue our edumacation. Have a good break. Have a good recess. Be good. Okay, we're back. We're back, and I want to spend at least like, let's see, maybe we'll spend the next like 15 to 30 minutes on like women's fashion, and then the last 15 to 30 minutes on like cars, and then we'll do time guesser. We'll see how much we've learned, if at all. If at all. But hello, welcome back from the ad break. Yeah, this is a really good article. Like, this whole site is just really good at like helping with learning like fashion, historical fashion. It's unfortunate that it only goes to the 1960s, but like with what it has from the 1900s to the 1960s, there's a lot of information. So I'll actually share it with you guys if you guys are interested. But okay, let's take a look at women's fashion. And then I also did look a little bit into the graphic design, because I realized this is supposed to be a style study, and what I've done before with style studies is like try to imitate the style itself. But this is more so, like I said, the main thing is to get good at time guesser. So maybe we will have a separate stream where we try to imitate each of these styles. But right now, let's take a look at fashion. Let's see at least what the Vogue article says, and then we'll look into like, we'll see if we Google like what the average like woman wore in the 1930s, if we'll get like different results, right? So let's see, the bias cut. Let's see what we have here. Take off that stiff girdle. Your vendeuse orders. I don't even know what that is. Vendeuse orders sternly. Can't be fitted into that. It'll make you into a tube. And with that came the 1930s. Just a half a decade prior, the tubular look was the cat's pajamas. We gotta bring back this slang. We gotta bring it back. The cat's pajamas. The cat's pajamas. Oh, that sounds weird. The figure, then the frock. In its April 15, 1931 edition, this new era was all about the glorious female form. So it's just like what we were talking about before, where every decade, every art movement is reacting to, not always against, the movement that came before. So if the 1920s was all about the tubular look, I'll show you right now. Oh, and our little, we actually have to move this down here, mayhaps. If we go back to the 1920s, it was all about this tubular look. You didn't want, the silhouette was very straightforward, you know, quite literally straightforward, right? We had the short hair with the bell-shaped hat, right? So the reaction against that is showing off them curves, girl. But also, it still wasn't like, when they say showing off the curves, they weren't showing off of like, if you happen to be like, how do I say this? Like a full-bodied, I guess the euphemism is like full-bodied, like voluptuous woman. This seems to be more so stressing like, it's still like the natural curves, but I'm not seeing too many women showing off the big boobies is what I'm trying to say, like the full body, you know? But you did see a little bit more of like curvature, at least with the waist. The short hair is still there. I do like the styling too of the short hair. This one does feel a little bit more of like what you might see with like contemporary, not contemporary, like middle class or maybe even working force women. You do see like the wide pants, right? So maybe that's something we can add. We still have like the hats too. But also, another thing is I should probably also take note of what year it is, because 1931 is going to be very different from the styles of 1939, right? So let's see what we got here. So I'll put like more emphasis. More emphasis. Is this Doichi? Oh, it is Doichi. More emphasis on... There is another Doichi song that I want to listen to. Even though I do like this one. Did we also run out of Lady Gaga songs? Actually, I was talking about Marina and the Diamonds, so let's play some Marina and the Diamonds. Ooh, take it back. Take it back to Electra Heart 2012. Let's freaking go. Oh. More emphasis on natural curves. Let's see what else. Natural curvature, the flapper tried so hard to distract, is now the women's prized possession. Her dresses had that wrap and cling. Oh. Natural curves with a quote-unquote wrap and cling. This is cool. Look, this is an illustration by Salvador Dali. In Vogue. Who would have thunk it? I think that's pretty cool because it is very Dali, right? Clothes are literally molded to the woman's body. They might have a pliable girdle to smooth things out. Victorian-esque papier-mâché stiff waist snatcher. I'm just gonna copy this whole portion here. That just seems very, like, indicative of what we're looking at. Let's do comma. Another quotation mark. Victorian-esque papier-mâché stiff waist snatcher. This is a cool picture, too. It's very, like, neoclassic. Like, it's harkening back to, like, Greek and Roman, almost. Backless silhouette. Okay, that's another good, good one. Backless dresses. Pants became popular. The wide leg looked... Why is this so hard to say? Wide leg looks enter the chat. What about pants? Wear when? Actually, yeah, did women wear pants before this time? Because when we looked at the 1920s, it was mostly skirts. Like shorter skirts, but like, well, they had leggings, right? Or stockings, I'm assuming. Is this the first that we see women wearing pants? It's still long pants, so they kind of resemble like dresses in a way, but wide pants. We'll put that there. Because this just says that like wide leg pants are like becoming popular. It doesn't necessarily say that like pants in general became popular. So it's very possible that they were wearing pants before that, but I'm not sure. Culottes, okay. Discussion. Wait. What about pants wear when? It read only they go discussions about where and when women can wear slacks, shorts, culottes. The consensus for sport and holiday, the pant was a smart choice. Oh, for white pants, but maybe only for vacations. Cause we're American, gosh darn it. We don't say holiday, unless it's a holiday. Vacations and sports. On your knees for me. Hollywood is the fashion capital. Okay. Hollywood-born clothes. We're getting into some outlandish stuff. We're getting into like what you might see on like JoJo, right? Even though JoJo fashion is more so like very contemporary, like high fashion, right? Rayon, nylon, and zippers. Fashion gets techie. Lest we forget the 1930s started off with a disastrous stock market crash. That's true. For those able to participate in fashion, sartorial technology developments helped to democratize it, especially the fiber rayon. I wonder who is the stand user. Yeah, let's take a look. This actually seems kind of tame for like JoJo fashion. This one I could see like maybe like Steel Ball Run, right? Like this would look like something you would see out of like either Steel Ball Run or no, yeah, I think that would be the time period, right? So it'd be like what's a stand there? Oh, why am I blanking on stands from Steel Ball Run? Maybe it's because I subconsciously don't want to spoil it. Was it like Chocolate Love or something like that? But okay, so we're seeing rayon and nylon. And zippers. Okay. Materials like was it nylon, rayon, and zippers. Surrealism in fashion, you say? Oh, okay, let's put that too. So neoclassicism. So it is neoclassics and surrealism influence. Ever wanted was the world. Is the lobster? Look, we could be answering lobster phones in the lobster dresses right now. We could make it a reality. The lobster dress. I want that lobster dress. Fashion through a lens. Fashion illustration hasn't fallen out of favor. The 1930s embraced and pushed the limits of fashion photography. Oh, are we starting to see color in here? Cool, cool. This looks more contemporary. This looks like something you'd see in like the 80s, right? Chocolate disco. I do mean chocolate disco, yeah. Chocolatito disco. Which is actually a Japanese song. I think that's one of the few times that like Araki has used a Japanese song for a stand name. Cause I think it's is it Capsule? I think it's a song by I forgot who actually sang it. But I've listened to it before. It's the one that goes like Chocolatito disco. Chocolatito disco. Okay, so top designers. Vionette, Schiaparelli, Coco Chanel, Molyneux, Mainbacher. I don't know any of these. I don't know nothing about high fashion. And then the one paragraph about men's trends, you know? Let's see if we can get like an article that shows a little bit more of like middle-class women. So 1930s middle-class women fashion. I'm getting a lot of videos. What did people wear? There's actually quite a few. Let's see, 1930 to 1945 in Western fashion. I think Pexco did mention this, that there's actually Wikipedia articles. This actually might be a better reference for us. Perfume, it is Perfume, you're right. There's a Japanese band called Capsule that I used to listen to a lot. But you're right, it is Perfume. That you like, we just pretend. Okay, so I'm seeing some like suits. Some skirts. Forward-looking attitude lingered through most of the 1930s. By the end of the year, began to affect the public. More conservative approach to fashion displaced the 1920s. Skirts became longer and waistline was returned to its normal position. Cloche hats remained popular. Short hair remained popular for many women until late in the 1930s and even into the 40s. Okay, let's put that. So, short hair was still popular, but waist and skirt length went back to pre-1920s lengths. Let's see here. Greatly affected the fashion. Designers were forced to slash prices to keep their business afloat. Designers were also forced to use cheaper fabric. Clothing was made more accessible. Continuation of mass production. Zippers. Okay, we mentioned that already. Hemlines of dresses rose to knee length. Wait, so I'm getting some like alternate things here where it's like, oh, people wanted to be more conservative, so the skirt lengths, you know, went back down. But here it's saying that like, oh, because the fabric is scarce, they rose. So maybe this is more so like 1931 versus like 1938, right? Oh, because it is, yeah, going into the 40s. I see. Been worth the fight. Accessories. Oh yeah, this is also like a big article. This is a big article. Oh, we have a style gallery. Okay. Let's see what we notice here. So we still have like, this is a little bit of a carryover from the 1920s. Okay, this is a good picture too. Let me copy this. Let's put it in our little collage here. Okay, if we look, most of them are, I think all of them are wearing skirts. So yeah, the length did go back down. But everyone still has like, you know, hats that kind of like cling to the hair. Short hair too. I think all of them have short hair of some kind. Been worth the fight. Stockings. Oh, that's a cute picture. The dresses. There is a little bit more emphasis on the curves on some of these. With the car. That's pretty handy because we're going to be going to cars after this. This is what, 1935? Okay. Okay, the silhouette is starting to disappear again now that we're getting into the 1940s. No, actually, it differs. It varies. There's also another good picture. This is 1937. So let's do a compare and contrast. How have things changed from 1931 to 1937? Dresses are still pretty long. I'm not seeing the stockings, but it's just very possible that like it's a little bit more like sheer and like not easy to see. Everyone still has short hair, but they still have hats. It's not quite the cloche hats. It's more like the wider like sun hats. Why this guy kind of looked like Matt Smith though? Why he kind of looked like the 11th Doctor though? Was it 11th? But also these ladies are a little bit older too, so like let's see if we can find other pictures to use to compare. Okay, this one is interesting. This is also 1937. Is that shorts? Scandalous. Wait, I like the jewelry. This also looks very cozy. Oh my god. What is this? Why do they have the cone heads? Interesting. Getting into the 1940s. Alright, we'll save that for the next style study. Interesting, interesting. Okay. Alright, so we got a good amount of notes from that. Let's get into cars. Just for fun. I'm only happy when I'm on the run. A million hearts just for fun. I'll actually put away this article on Joan Miro. Alright, so cars of the 1930s. I have 4 examples here. You have the Ford Model A from 1930 to 1931. I believe that's this one. Mercedes-Benz. You know what? I need the original. We might need the original. Supercars by the decade. I use this one, but with this page, it runs into the same problem that I had with the Vogue articles, where it's showing like the best of the best, the most iconic cars of the decade, but it might not necessarily be the kind of cars that middle class people or like your everyman is going to be driving back then. So like you're going to be seeing some like supercars and some super luxurious ones, but I decided to Google like what was a middle class person, you know, like driving back then. And I got the Ford Model A and the Chevrolet Master Coupe, which I think is these two. I think the blue one might be the Delahaye Grand Prix. And I think this is Mercedes-Benz. I unfortunately don't remember, even though I just pasted these in literally like 30 minutes before I started stream. So it's because we also went over like a lot of different topics too, right? But if we compare, let's see, we have here the Ford Model A. I do have some sketches of the Ford Model A, which came before, or it might have been the Model T. Where's my sketchbook? Where did I put my sketchbook? Oh, I see it. I don't think I can turn on my webcam, so you unfortunately cannot see my sketches. But just know that I'm comparing and contrasting a Ford Model A from 1928 to this. Interesting. It's a 2-seater. This is interesting. This is a 2-seater. The one that I drew from the 1920s is a 4-seater, I believe. It almost feels like a joke to play a part. Look at the horn. Look at the beep beep. Look at that. So what I started noticing around this time, around like the 1920s, well, you also see this in earlier decades as well, but like this part that's covering the wheel is becoming way more ornate, but also the more you get into like the later 1930s, the more it starts to kind of like become like more a part of the overall frame. Once you get into the 1940s, like this is actually a good example. Like I said, I'm pretty sure this is the Chevrolet. Let me do a quick Google. Chevrolet Master Coupe 1937. Yeah, I was right. This is the Chevrolet Master Coupe. So if you compare these two cars right here, this feels a little bit separated from like, you have here the overall frame of the car, and then there's like this part that like covers the wheels. They are attached, but it like they look kind of separate. If you go over here, it's way more integrated. Like you see that the parts covering the wheel is very much a part of the frame itself, if that makes sense. So all of it feels like, you know, one piece, as opposed to like two separate, or like in this case, like three separate pieces, like the wheel covering, the overall frame, and then the other wheel covering, right? So you do kind of see that development a little bit. Like I said, I think this is the Mercedes-Benz. It's very sleek and ornate, right? If I'm looking at cars from before, they also have very sleek and ornate cars. Like, let's compare the Mercedes-Benz. I did a sketch here. To me, it's ever gonna give. I'll never set you free. Never set you free. Like a joke to play a part when you are not the starting role in someone else's heart. Alright, so these are both Mercedes-Benz. If we compare the two, this one feels a little bit longer, but also like the seat feels a little bit lower. They both have the ornate like covering over the tires. Oh, they're very similar. Like, I'm looking between the both of them and they're just very similar. They both have like the fender over here. Okay. It's hard to tell. This one feels like it's a four-seater and this one feels like it's a little bit smaller overall. Like the carriage feels a little bit smaller. And you know what? It is a little bit rounder. If you look at like the shape of like the carriage, I'm not even sure if I'm using these words correctly. The carriage, this one is very geometric. The early one's geometric, the later one is a little bit more rounded. So maybe that's like an aerodynamic thing? I'm not sure. And then this is a race car. I took this one because this is when the race cars start to remind me of Speed Racer. Do you guys remember Speed Racer? That one really old anime where like the lip, like the voice is not synced to the lip movements. So it's like, we gotta win this race. I believe this one is the Della Haye 145 Grand Prix. You can really see the transition from cars evolving from coach building to more factory manufacturing. Yes, Justin for a drive. Exactly. It's been interesting because, like I said, I had very little experience with cars before like taking on this project. And now seeing the evolution of cars from like horseless carriages to like, you know, rich people novelties to like a assembly line mass-produced car, to like all the advances that you see here. Because like I think the coolest things that I've noticed so far is this change of like the wheel covering to becoming like more integrated in the car, right? And a lot of different things like the headlights, the horn, and the mirrors, like just noticing little things like that is interesting. Because like when you get to the let me look back at my sketchbook. Back to like the 1890s and like the early 1900s, they feel very tacked on. They feel like an afterthought of like, oh yeah, we should have some kind of like windshield. Like, we should have something so that like bugs don't fly into our mouths, right? And thus you have a windshield. And then like headlights, it feels like someone just tacked on a headlight at first, but now they're actually integrated in the frame itself, you know? And then early cars didn't have a fender, or I'm assuming this is a fender, right? So like if you crash, good luck, the wheels are going bye-bye, or like the grill is going bye-bye, but instead now they have like, I'm assuming like a fender, so that if you crash into something, it doesn't just total the car. I mean, preferably, right? And then like, I just love this because it's so like Speed Racer, right? You know what? I want to look at a Speed Racer car. I remember watching the Speed Racer movie a long time ago. I remember loving it. And like no one else liked it at the time, but now suddenly people are coming out of the woodwork being like, I love that movie. But I remember, okay, this might be deceptive because this is making me like, people are gonna be like, ew, that's not from the 1930s. But I'm just saying, like, you're starting to see the Speed Racerness of it. It's clear that a lot of early car designs were made by people who never thought that one might collide with something. Yeah, right? Also, hello again, folk. Let me take this away. Believe land. But okay, so yeah, that is an analysis of cars. Once again, like, one of the big kind of, like, weaknesses of, like, using this website, oh, what am I doing? There we go. Is that, like, all of these, some of them are, like, more luxurious cars. Some of them are more, like, racing cars. So it's I've had to also like kind of look into like, all right, which of these cars was actually going to be driven on the roads of like, you know, a time guesser like 1930s picture, right? Because also some of these look so like outlandish. I love like the stout scarab. Look at that. This is probably very futuristic looking for its time, you know? I think another funny one is if you go back to the 1910s, there's like a swan car. Let me see if I can find it. Is it the 1900s? I know for sure I saw a swan car. Where is it? Here! The 1910 swan car, right? Can you imagine if I like looked at this car and was like, alright, I'm gonna draw this one. And it's like, surely I'm gonna encounter the swan car on Time Guesser. Honk. Honk honk. Something I noticed from the earlier racing cars, which is still a little true with these ones, they seem to be made with the idea of a bullet shape would be the fastest. That's a good point, actually. That's a really good point. Of like, that's probably like, you know, it's the most aerodynamic, right? With the least resistance. Some of that can go back to the people who used to make horse carriages transition to custom cars on a chassis. Is that, am I saying it right? A chassis? I just think the swan car is so charming. But, okay, so yeah, that's the cars in the 1930s. We are, oh no, this is getting into the 1940s. So yeah, like, spoiler alert, but like, now we're getting into the point where like the wheel covering is like fully like a thing that is integrated with the frame. Is it Herbie fully loaded? 100%? Alright, cool. But alright, and then lastly, the last thing I'll do before we get into our time guesser is a little bit of graphic design. I did look into it. Oh, give me a second. Okay. Okay, so going back, the last topic is the graphic design. I was only able to get a couple of like examples here, but it seemed like, at least from some of the videos, do I even have the video that I used as a source? I found a really cool video that goes over graphic designs over the decades, kind of like what we're doing now. Let me see if I could just find it. It's called Decades of Design. So let me... I'll share the video here. We're not gonna watch it on stream. But if you guys are curious, this person does the same thing of going over like the graphic design of like the 1920s, the 1930s, etc., etc. They also start with the 20s because it's 100 years ago, right? And what they highlighted here is the use of like gradients in an attempt to like make things look very 3D. So mind you, this is before the time of like Photoshop and like computer graphic design, so they're making this with like print work, you know? This looks pretty cool too, but yeah, like the use of like gradients you start to see used even more so around this time. They also revealed something that I think is pretty cool, is that Times New Roman comes from the 1930s. The font that like if you had to write a paper in college, you know, within the last like 10, 20 or I don't know, maybe 90 since the 90s, like 30 years or so, you probably had to use Times New Roman, right? 12 font, double space, etc., etc. And the font comes from the 30s. And I found out that the Futura font comes from the 1920s, and it kind of makes sense. Unfortunately, I can't show it off on this, like... Wait, can I? Let me see. Lorem Ipsum. That looks Times New Roman, but do we have... Oh no, it's just simple, bookish, technical, and scribbled. Which is pretty cool, but I'm using Figma right now. Figma balls. You guys can't throw stuff at me. Alright, how do I get rid of this thing? There's also a font called Rockwell Monotype that you would also see around the same time. But yeah, you're also kind of seeing the gradients here in this magazine design. This is from 1938, and I believe this one, yeah, is from 1931. So this use of like gradients. There's another content creator that focuses on like what color palettes were used throughout the decades. I didn't have time to look into that one, but that's just a little glimpse. So yeah, we looked at some art movements from the 1930s. We looked at women and men's fashion. We looked at some cars. We even looked at a little bit of graphic design. We tried as much as we could, but let's see if this actually helps us in Time Guesser today. Dang it, I'm trying to get like every single... forget it. Forget it. I'm just gonna move this one over. There we go. It's also very possible that we're gonna play Time Guesser and none of it is gonna be in the 1930s, but that's fine. We're gonna do our best, you know? So, with that said, here's our test. Time Guesser. And then afterwards, I do think I'm gonna call it because I'm getting tired, and I actually have to go to a baby shower tomorrow. My friends are getting to that point where like, oh man, we're going to each other's baby showers. That's crazy. Or I guess cub shower in this case. But all right, let's do our dailies, shall we? What do we got here? Oh, we immediately have some cars, and look, the covering over the wheel is kind of integrated within the frame itself. So maybe this is post 1930s. Where are we? Finance service company loans, Oshman Sporting Goods. What does this say? Brown Shipyard? Not Brown. Brown. Lisa, are you okay? You've been saying Brown a lot. Oh, what does it say on the... what? Is this like both... Wait. Safety? Safety Kodak. Okay, it says Safety Kodak. We have some numbers here, but I don't think it's a year. Shower a baby. Finance service loans. What else are we finding here? Dead. Do the lamps look gaslit or electric? Oh. I'm not sure. That's actually a detail that I'm not 100% sure on. I want to say gas, right? No, they might be electric. I'm trying to see. I think these are power lines too. Because also, look, you do see like these look like neon signs. So I would say that these are probably electric. But there's also not a lot of... Oh, there's also a hotel in the background. I can't tell which one it is though. Auditor's Hotel? Is that what it says? We do see some power lines. I want to say like maybe 1940s. Let's look at the fashion. We see some... This looks like school-age boys. The women's fashion might also tip us off. I think this is a post-1930s. The skirt is going up to the knees, right? Or like just below the knees. But it's a big hat. This looks like the woman has like longer hair up in a ponytail. You're also seeing some people of color. You're also seeing some people of color here. I wonder what is going on. Baby shower makes me think of COVID times with that picture of the priest baptizing the baby with the super soaker. I know, that one was wild. I kind of like... We never get pictures of like the pandemic here because like we for sure had them, but it's like it would be more so like indoor pictures, right? Because I feel like we always get pictures that are like right at like 2021 where people are still like masking up, but nothing like actually in 2020. Idol. Fighting for the title. I think this is the American flag. So we're somewhere in America. I just don't know. Where is Brown University? Is that New York? I know that's going to sound really dumb, but where is Brown? You know, because it says Brown Shipyard. Unless it's referring like in a racist way to like who works there, because I'm only seeing people of color like loading into these trucks, you know? But I feel like it's more innocent than that. I think it is just like the shipyard's just called Brown, you know, like Brown University. Looks like folks are getting on a bus to go to the shipyard to work. So yeah, like I feel like, would this be like New York then? Or like East Coast? 2020 is definitely when the craziest stuff from the panini happened, so it's probably be too easy. That's true. Brown is in Rhode Island, I see. So maybe let's go Rhode Island. Wait, where is Rhode Island? Usually I can find it on the map really quick, but that's Delaware. In a teen idol. Oh, here we go. Rhode Island. Fighting for the title. 16 and picking up a Bible, feeling super, super, super. Let's go to Providence. Let's say... No, brown. She okay? She's saying brown a lot. Brown is in Providence? Okay. Time period now. 1930s. The like truck, right? Because like the wheel covering is integrated in the frame itself. I do want to say like it's definitely past 1930s. We just don't know if it's 40s or 50s. You know what? What if this is during the war? Because like the only people who would be able to work in the ship. Well, no, you did also have like people of color in the war. Because I was gonna say like, oh, I'm not seeing too many like white adults. So maybe they're already like off to war by this point, but also like, not sure. Let's say the 50s. Let's say the 50s Providence. 7 years, it was 43. Oh, and it's in Houston, Texas. Okay. Shipyard workers waiting to board buses in downtown Houston, Texas, traveling to facilities along the Houston Ship Channel to help build ships for the U.S. war effort. So it was during the war. But we got the location wrong, but that's okay. All right, another black and white one. The cars, they don't have the, look at, once again, the covering of the wheels. It's integrated with the frame itself, so this is much later. So I want to say this would be like maybe 60s, 70s? The only question is, where is this? Where in the world is this? Extra Plis? What does this say? Oh, that's another script entirely, right? Oh, I'm having trouble reading like what? Peed Boof. Peedaboof? Is that French? Boof. Ansjar? Interesting. This might be European. It is BP British Petroleum. Do you think it might be this? Like Peedboof? It looks like I'll put it in chat. It looks like it's saying this. Booerns. Peedboof. But the O and the E is like combined into like a single letter. That's what it like kind of looks like to me. So maybe P... Oh no, maybe BP is British Petroleum. I don't know why I thought it was like Peedboof, but no, that would be opposite, right? Cafe, we have a hotel. It's a very scratchy photo. GTW. It says Ansjar, like... Ansjar. Maybe that'll be our Google search. A bit further down this, yeah, the BP sign. Because a part of me wants to say like Ans might be like years, so like 100 years. Because it's like Anus, right? Like Anus is like year, and like Años. Let's look at 100 Ansjar. I feel like that might be Dutch, but it could also be like Nordic, you know. Ansjar. No, this was a failure of a Google search. It's showing me jars. Like, it's showing me jars. No. What if I put quotation marks? It's still the same Google search, but I just want like... Ansjar. No, it's just showing me products. Dang you, Google. It's just showing me products for jars. No. Okay. Let's say that this is Dutch. Let's say that it's Amsterdam, 1965, and hope for the best. Okay. It's not. It's Brussels. Kind of close, right? Two men chatting on Avenue du Boulevard in Brussels during the early 1960s, so we were 5 years off. Not too bad, though. Not too bad. Same decade. Oh, hockey. Oh my gosh. This is such an epic... Oh, it's the Olympics. But the question is, which Olympics? We have all these flags over here. Okay, 2 crowns. Anyone know anything about hockey? Any heated rivalry fans here that can tell me? This is probably like a Winter Olympics, but the question is, let's see, we're in a Winter Olympics right now, right? So it could be 2026, it could also be 2022. Are we in a Winter Olympics right now? I know the Summer Olympics are going to be 2028 because it's going to be here in Los Vincos. I see German flag colors. Oh, I think you're right. Yeah, right? Black, red, yellow. Oh, and look at the eagle. But that could also be Austria, right? Look at this eagle over here. It says Bauer. Maybe it is Germany. Yeah, the Winter Olympics did just start, right? I think is tonight the like start, right? Please don't tell me this is from today. Like, no, the time guesser restarts at midnight, US time, I think. So this couldn't have been from today because it literally just started. Oh, Olympics started yesterday? I don't think it would be this year. Oh god, that'd be wild if this is from this year. It is literally from like yesterday. Let's say 2022. But the thing is, where were the 2022 Winter Olympics? I actually like don't know, right? I actually don't even know where this year's are. Maybe that'll be my Google search. 2022 Winter Olympics. They were in Beijing. Okay. So do we want to say Beijing 2022? This is the German team. Let's hope it's 2022. Make a guess. It was today. What? What? Oh, the opening goal during the preliminary round. It was literally this year. I was gonna say like, there's no way they got a picture from like yesterday for this. That feels. No way. Swedish ice hockey player. Oh, they're Swedish. Wait, then why do they got the eagle? Scoring the opening goal during the preliminary round Group B match between Sweden and Germany. Oh, it is Germany. Okay. It's Sweden v Germany. Okay. Dang. Bamboozled. Dang it. Okay, so where is this? We got some carriages here, so we might be thinking early 1900s. Yeah, we're not seeing a lot of cars. Well, we're seeing these ones, these street cars. Ulevolo. Torshaug Homansby. Maybe Nordic? Early 1900s Nordic? Grunerfloken. This feels Nordic. The only question is which Nordic country. Because we never guess the right one. When we think it's Oslo, it's Copenhagen. When we think it's Copenhagen, it's oh my god, why am I blanking? Stockholm. And when we think it's Stockholm, it's Oslo. And it's never Reykjavik. Adelstein Jensen. I do feel like this is Nordic. The question is which one? Elephant Apothecate. Elephant Apothecary, mayhaps? If we were to make a guide for people filling out Time Guesser, we need to make a guide on whether we're like, which Nordic country are you looking at, you know? Maybe Sweden is the Three Crowns. You might be right. Because the ultimate goal is to do this without any Google searches, right? Because I could easily just look up any one of these locations and I think that would narrow it down. But we want to get to the point where we don't have to worry about that, right? Adelstein Jensen. I want to say this is 1910s. Either 1900s or 1910s. Let's put it 1908. Let's put it in a Nordic country, but we really have to guess which one. Oslo, Copenhagen, or Stockholm. Take your bets, right? It might even be another country entirely, but... Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Catch a binka by her toe. If she yaps, let her go. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Copenhagen. Let's hope for the best. Which Nordic country are we looking at? Image of a guy shrugging. Okay. No! It's never the right one. It's freaking Oslo. And we were 7 years off. It was the 1910s though. It was the 1910s. We never get the right Nordic country. This will always be the bane of my existence unless we do like heavy research. We need a research day that is entirely dedicated to just the Nordic countries, right? No, not bad at all. Yeah, it's not as like whenever I get into like the 3000s or 4000 score wise, it's pretty good. But still, it's just the Nordic countries are always like so hard. Okay, where are we now? The long hair makes me think 70s. The background? I'm not sure. That's a cross because I was gonna say India at first because of like the way that these buildings are topped, but because there's a cross, I want to say like maybe Russia or this looks kind of orthodox, right? Like this like art in the background. Bring on a Scandinavian friend of the channel, someone from not Oslo. I think is Donchi? Donchi's Norwegian, right? I'm trying to think of like who else is like Nordic that we might know. Cause we can ask like, okay, like how do we find out which one of these is Oslo? Looks more Russian. Yeah, like kind of St. Basil's Cathedral, right? Do we want to say Moscow in the 70s? Yeah, Donchi's Norwegian. I feel like there's a I would be down to ask Donchi, but also like do we like if we have a Norwegian friend, do we have any Swedish and or Danish friends? Do we have I don't know if this would be St. Basil's, if I'm being honest with you. I don't even know if it would be Moscow, because it could also just be Eastern Europe in general. Like you know, it could be Ukraine, it could be Romania, it could be Bulgaria, Turkey. St. Petersburg is another option. Because this art definitely looks like Orthodox, right? Because I think St. Basil's Cathedral looks a little bit different. We could try St. Petersburg. Where is it? Right here? Is this St. Petersburg? Let's do the 70s. 77? 2 years off. It was Moscow. Oh, it's Elton John. I didn't even realize. Posing outside of the Kremlin in Moscow during a tour of the Soviet Union. Oh, interesting. It did end up being Moscow, but that's okay. Like I said, whenever it's over 3,000, that's pretty good in my book. Final score. Nice, we got 33,000. Not too bad. I don't think did we get anything from the 1930s? No, right? We're getting better at like guessing the time period, but not so much the locations. Cause like I like that it shows you a summary of all the like places, and we did get pretty far off on some of them, but otherwise not too bad at all. If it's above 30,000, I'm feeling good, right? I'm feeling good. There have been days where it was a lot harder. So with that, I think it's about time to call it, you guys. Thank you for researching with me. I hope this little deep dive into the art, fashion, and design of the 1930s was nice and educational. I hope you guys had fun with the research. I clearly need a little bit more research on certain things, but it's still fun to do these. Like, I'm always excited to just research and get into a flow state for these. So 2 weeks from now is going to be the 1940s. We're going to get into the big war. I mean, the bigger war, because they already had the big war by this point. But yeah, get excited. Get freaking excited. This is actually my last stream for the week. There is going to be no Saturday stream because, like I mentioned, Beans and I have to go to a baby shower tomorrow. So I will release my schedule on Sunday. We're going to be playing a game that you might not expect from me, but it was a recommendation from a friend who just got affiliate. And then I might also be making emotes for said friend. Go wash that baby. We will wash the baby. We'll bring like water guns and stuff. Being blast the baby. The baby's not even born yet. The baby's still in the tummies, in the tum-tums. Thank you, Matthew, for shouting out Mega Bronson. But yeah, so he gave me a game recommendation, and then I'm also going to be making emotes for him next week. But we're also going to be continuing. Oh, I realize you can see my sneakrits. We're also going to be continuing our dinosaur drawing project. Fear and loathing. Let's see, what are we moshing to? You reposted in the wrong plastic love. Avril Lavigne complicated is on the first take? Wait. What the hecky? Okay. Alright guys, we're gonna do our end of stream mosh pit. If you've never moshed with us before, all you gotta do is when you hear the music, go ahead and spam your favorite emotes. I'm gonna make your little stream avatars on the floor that fight each other. There's no correlation between who spams the most emotes and who wins the mosh pit. It's RNG and it's not rigged. So, get to moshing. And you can't throw things at me because that redeem is broken. So allow me to do it for you. It's a bear. This is Ride by Cherry Poppin'. Remind me next time. Moshi Moshi! You guys ready for complicated? Wow. Moshi Moshi. This is crazy. Uh-huh. Yeah? Will we get to the 40s next time? We will. The big war. What you feeling for? It's all been done before. Let it be, and then you'll see. When we're driving in your car. To me, one-on-one, but you become somebody else, run to everyone else. Like you can't relax. You look like a fool to me. Go and make things so complicated. The way you're acting like you're somebody else gets me frustrated. It's like this, you fall and you crawl and you break and you take what you get and you turn it into. Honestly, you promised me you're never gonna find you fake it. No, no, no. Yay, Justin for a drive, you won the mosh pit. Let's go. But can you win? Round 2. Fight. You strike, you pose. All your preppy clothes. Somebody else, not everyone else. Like you can't relax, you try to be cool. You look like a fool to me. Tell me. This is a very mellow mosh. It really is. I was not expecting the Avril Lavigne on first take. Gets me frustrated. Life's like this, you fall and you crawl and you break what you take, what you get, and you turn it into. Honestly, you promised me you're never gonna find you fake it. No, no, no. I got the med pack. Oh no, you guys are gonna say it's rigged. 2 med packs in a row. No, no, no. Do we have enough time for a round 3? Kinda. Lay back, it's all been done before. Alright, one more. It's not rigged, it's not rigged. I gotta take a sip. To me, tell me. Make things so complicated. See the way you're acting like you're somebody else gets me frustrated. Life's like this, you fall and you crawl and you break what you take, what you get, and you turn it into. Honestly, you promised me I'm never gonna find you fake it. No, no, no. Complicated. Acting like somebody else gets me frustrated. Life's like this, you fall and you crawl and you break what you take, what you get, and you turn it into. Honestly, you promised me you're never gonna find you fake it. Dang, Justin for a drive getting the 2 med packs. Can Mega Bronson survive this? He did it! It's Justin for a drive! 2-round winner! Let's go! Good job. Alright guys, I hope you guys have a good weekend. We're gonna go ahead and go to our outro. I'll take you guys home. Or at least I'll take you guys over to A-Ross, because he was chilling out in stream today. I feel like I should go ahead and raid into him. He's doing some just chatting right now, and he's looking at some pretty cool art. So let's go ahead and raid into him. Start the raid. I hope you guys have a good morning, afternoon, and evening, and weekend. And as always, I'll see you guys when I see you guys. Bye-bye. Oh wait, raid message. Raid message. And free raid if you're not subscribed. Oh wait, no, it's raid free. There you go. If you're not subscribed, use that one.